Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto X Loona Wolf Helluva Boss. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Dark Symbiote, link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Raid your power words. Side note, none of the songs that eventually will be used are owned by me in any way, shape or form, nor do I own any of the shows involved with this. I wish I fucking did though. The first thing he noticed was the sound and rushing past his head almost like he was standing underneath a waterfall. The sound was soothing until he started waking to reality. The one soothing sounds now thunderous in his eardrums, his eyes opening and adjusting, viewing a black and red sunset of a sky. His eyes open and focusing, the realization of weightlessness set upon him and the flapping of the burning rags and a necklace that still adorned him. Falling. How long had he been falling and from where? Looking up he could see a line of smoke that grew with his descent. Ami burning, spinning himself and riding his body, he could see a large city down below that was getting closer by the second. Ah shit. Bring his arm up into a guard and tucking his head down, he braced himself to at least go through the incoming window and hopefully come to a stop on its floor. Unfortunately, he didn't realize just how fast he was still moving, nor how dense his body was. Blowing the hole through the window, the floors he soon encountered held no better, merely serving to slow his descent before he exited out the other side and bounced across the street into another building. The impact hurls trash, racks and cloths into the air and throughout the room. The windows are blown out or cracked by his sudden entry. Rats curry and the homeless in the alleyways go running, thinking a turf war was coming. Smoke fills the room as a growling figure stands up, tilting his head from side to side. Popping sounds could be heard as he looked around before he looked down at himself. Well, let's not have you hanging out, and stepped out of the burning indent, his tail swaying behind him. Walking among the display racks that were left, he grabbed black pants that were spiked and plaited on the knees and were long enough for his digitigrade legs. There we go, no use in being buck-ass naked and lost. Grabbing more items and getting annoyed most of his crap didn't fit until he found a display mannequin for a movie. Well, at least it's good cover, outfitted with an orange hoodie under a black duster with strapped boots with claw slits in them. Oh, this shit's gotta be expensive. Oh well, mine. Now pulling the hood over his head as a searchlight stabs through the front wrecked windows. PCPD, stop where you are. He dashes into the aisles and slams through a door in the back before they can finish the order. The PCPD officers give chase. Fucking shit, he's fast. A door came flying off its hinges, wedged into the adjacent building as a large figure tore through the alley. Way up, this would have been way worse if I was naked. Without slowing, Naru leaps toward him, twisting in midair and kicking off the wall as the cop fires and misses. Growling, he snaps a clawed hand up through the barrel before the demon can load the next slug and snaps and falls into slanted clean-cut chunks when he tries. Oh shy, a fist slammed into the demon's face, sending him into a dumpster, denting it in, and the figure took off past his body before he landed. A ways away, a small clawed hand fished a wallet out of a passerby's pocket, snatching a few bills out of it and tossing it before walking away. Well, it's the first of the month for somebody, Snips said as he counted his haul for the day, rolling up the bills and hiding them in his ear. Luckily his hair was long enough to hide his ears a bit too. Even if he got robbed, what do you expect to get from a homeless kid's pockets? Now normally a little fella this young wouldn't be far for either his parents or the adoption agency, but unfortunately Snips didn't listen all that well, and being stuck in that place with a want for parents and said rejection didn't sit right with him much. He was on his way to his hiding spot, getting ready to around the corner before a bang was heard from further up the alleyway. As he turned, he froze when his brain registered a large mass moving towards him like a freight train, and a fear that settled in once they made eye contact. Slit blue, surrounded by blood red and looking through him as if he wasn't even there. The bullet whizzed over his head, taking the tip of his ear off. A whine like a kicked crying puppy reached the figure's ear as his head snapped down, seeing the small hellhound holding its ear and blood leaking through. Sit still, asshole, a growl ripped out of his chest as he slammed a hand into a dumpster, dragging it with him and digging his claws in before he whipped around, his eyes visibly blazing even at the distance they were at, and hurled the weighed down metal container towards the PCPD, taking out fire escapes and a few AC units. They scramble to get out of the way and a few don't make it as they try to regroup, only to see the assailant was gone. Fuck, we lost him, one of the demons said. No shit, Davey. In a roof miles away, whining could be heard. A larger figure sat cradling the much smaller hellhound. Shit, okay kid, can you stand? Naru looked down at the kid, seeing the blood had leaked onto his hoodie. Mail, get another one, the thought, seeing the kid nod, and gently moved him to stand. Okay, let me see the ear, kid. At that, Snips moves back and looks worried as Naruto held up his hands in an easing manner. Easy, I can help, he says, gesturing for him to come closer. Snips stands there for a few seconds before moving closer and moving his hand, showing the crescent. Shit, those things are really meant to do damage. Rubbing his hands together, black and green glow shone from his palms, and then he moved his hands to either side of the kid's ear. The pain and ringing started to ease away to nothing and Snips started to relax. I didn't know some of the overlords could be cool, he said, looking up at the hooded figure. Raising an eyebrow beneath the hood. Sorry, but no clue what the hell an overlord is, he said, shrugging. Wait, what? But how did you do all that stuff earlier and the healing stuff, and you definitely got shot like a lot, Snips said, waving his arms around before hopping up on the bigger hellhound and seeing the bullet holes in his jacket over his shoulder. Snip suddenly found himself lifted and held up with his elbows resting on red furred hands. Wait, red. Sniffing around the figure's hands, the scent was definitely bloody, but hellhound nonetheless. Dude, did you dye your fur? Setting him down, the figure reached back and pulled his hood down, showing scarlet red fur with pale yellow almost white tipped ears and a spot on his forehead. Nah, definitely not dyed, but yeah, I definitely got shot earlier, he said with a snort as he sat back on the roof border. Snips looked at him shocked. I've never heard of a red hellhound before. Are you even from around here? He said before poking around his arms, his fur feeling fluffy and smooth, but his skin felt like stone underneath it. Can't say that I am, kid, Naru says as he tries to think back only to be met with a headache. THST made him squint one of his eyes. Pretty sure I just got to wherever here is, but other than that, shouldn't you have been with your parents or something? The hell are you doing wandering? He said, leaning his head back, resting it, looking up at the darker sky, letting the headache fade. I'm an orphan. Ah shit, sitting back up and looking at the kid who was now sitting and looking at the floor, sighing. Okay, so orphanage. I ran away. Ah, double shit. Okay, let me guess, you live on your own in a shitty apartment or hotel room. Snips looks up with a slightly strained expression. No, I live in an abandoned warehouse. The red wolf looks at him and blinks. How did you not get your organs harvested? He says with a raised eyebrow. Well, I mean, they've tried, but I'm faster than the bigger imps, and I'm still a little bit smaller than the smaller ones, so I could fit in different places and hide, Snip said with a shrug before he was picked up and placed on the older wolf's shoulder. Yup, not letting you out of my sight, kid, Naruto said before walking to a less busy looking side. If the building and pulling his hood up. My name isn't Kid, it's Snip, and since you're new maybe I can help you get around and stuff. Do I even weigh anything to you? Snorting. No, it feels like I'm holding a bag of cotton balls. And Naruto, you've got yourself a deal, Squirty says, stopping next to the edge. Ah, you have a funny name, was all that was heard as Naruto hopped over down to the ground, crushing the pavement when he landed. I'm Skip. Cars honking can be heard as we look in on the imp building. Behind a closed door with a sign that says meeting in progress on the inside, there is a small group of people. A single imp walked a whiteboard on the wall as he lectures his employees. So alright, now, I know business has been a bit slow lately, yes. It's no one's fault, okay? I'm not naming any names here. Blitzo sends a pointed look at Moxie. Smaller imp responds with a what the hell. Look. Now, does anyone have any bright ideas on how we can get business drumming up again? Blitzo continues to walk around. What about a car wash? Millie asks the sweet and chipper imp that she is. Blitzo raises his eyebrows. This is hell, Millie. No one cares about cars being clean here, okay? Ooh, what about a billboard? Moxie quickly interjects. We can't afford a billboard, sir. Walking closer, Blitzo says in a chipper voice. Helpful, Moxie. Really glad you're in the room right now, shoves the hell out of Moxie, making him fly out of his chair. Have you guys forgotten what service we provide? Blitzo turns on a TV that shows the IMP crew brutally murdering people from the overworld as they are paid to do. Blitzo whacks a man in the face with a mallet. Moxie is blown away, firing a shotgun through the mouth of a man tied to a chair. Luna shaking a man back and forth in her jaws, and Millie decapitates someone with a harpoon and laughs. By the end, everyone is watching the TV, with Luna, Millie, and Blitzo eating popcorn. Ah, those were the good times. Blitzo says, wiping an imaginary tear. I don't need any reminding, sir, considering you blew most of our salaries on an obnoxious TV ad last week. One that you then additionally paid to have run for a full 3 hours on a channel nobody watches, Moxie says, raising a good point and being annoyed while at it. Hey, excuse me. What's moving his fingers to make air quotes obnoxious about a super fun jingle? Alright. It's a fun distraction when an advertisement spittin' bullshit. He says with indignation. People love musicals, sir, Millie says, Chopper as always, snapping his finger. Exactly, Millie. And we're basically doing a musical. Are you gonna crush my musical theater dreams like my dad did? Blitzo says with fake emotion. Moxie gains a flat look, sir. Being overdramatic, Blitzo says, cause right now, all I see is just my dad's asshole talking to me. Crushing my dreams of being who I truly am inside. Millie looks over at Moxie. Are you trying to crush his dreams, Moxie? Shocking the imp. What? I thought I knew you. Millie playfully sticks her tongue out at him as Moxie realized she's been fucking with him and rolls his eyes affectionately. Blitzo driving home the emotional manipulation. I can't believe you, Moxie. He holds up an Employee of the Month plaque with Moxie's picture on it. After I made you Employee of the Month. Okay, sir. I'm sorry, a commercial jingle is not comparable to musical. Actually likes the jingles. Moxie relents and says after giving into the plaque, not knowing when Blitzo had time to make it, so it might actually be real. I liked it, Millie said, completely being honest. Do not. Moxie points at Millie, slightly twitching. Do not agree with him in front of me. Loona, who has her feet up and pretty much ignoring everyone and is watching a video on her phone of Moxie getting hurt. I'd like to go on record and say that incident was Luna's fault. Dispatch is supposed to give us their info on the target. It's very simple. Moxie says, pointedly looking at Loona. Moxie still not looking up from her phone and hurling an insult but not accepting the criticism. Yowsit. Sit on and the D to your job. Moxie says, having multiple brain farts while trying to think of a comeback. Hey, now, we don't blame our screw-ups on Loona, okay? Blitzo hugs and nuzzles Loona, who appears to strongly dislike his affection and him touching her face. She didn't do anything wrong, Blitzo says in a slightly baying voice. Feigning a look of annoyance. Are you kidding me, sir? Shess awful. Moxie says and lists off the last few screw-ups and rudeness. From hanging up on Millie after she got stabbed or stole his lunch, then hit him with it, or the other violent outbursts. Look, the point is, Loona is a valued member of our family and we don't get rid of family, Blitzo says, being serious, and Loona looks up from her phone and smiles a bit, actually touched by Blitzo's words. We aren't a family, sir, you are the boss. We are the employees. You treat her like she's some troubled teenager. She's more like a meth-addicted homeless woman you let man the phones. Moxie says, not even really wrong about it, but as Moxie rants, Loona continues looking at her phone, slowly flipping Moxie off. That is offensive. Without homeless people. Blitzo walks over to window and raises blinds. I wouldn't have half the joy and laughter I do in this life. Blitzo then puts his face up against the window, cracking it, and sees a homeless demon, looking sad and holding up a sign that reads money helps. Satan bless. A female demon is on her cell phone and ignores the hobo. Blitzo smugly waves at him before lowering the window blinds. While we're on the subject of family, can you stop finding me and Millie outside of work? Moxie says with a dry look at Blitzo. Come on, sweetie. It's not that big a deal. Millie says, trying to be positive, excuse mute. And Moxie begins to rant about their dinners and then private times being invaded by their boss. Hell, even their refrigerator wasn't safe. Just stop doing that. Moxie exclaimed, agitated with the whole situation. Blitzo shrugs. I don't see what the issue is. There's something you don't want me seeing. He says in a slick tone. Moxie's eye twitches in anger. No. Across the table Loona sniggered before Blitzo followed up. You baby wiener haver. Sir, what you say and how you act is totally. Stands up from his chair and points inappropriate. Lily lays her hand on Moxie's shoulder. Calm down, Mox. You're gonna have another panic attack. He immediately snaps. I am calm. He starts whimpering in anger while looking back at Blitzo as Millie kept comforting him. Look, I don't judge the boring couple stuff motions with his hands to imply sexual activity you do outside work hours, so don't judge me. Oh, I do judge you, sir. Quite a lot, actually. Moxie says, pointing before Millie interjected. Mox, he's Urbis. No, it's fine, Mills. Your husband is just, how do I say this without being offensive, irritated, Blitzo says, being narrowing his eyes. Does immaturely insulting me make you feel better about your sad single life? Moxie towards Moxie. It actually does. The only reason you have a wife looking away from her phone to glare at Moxie is because you're easy to manage. Loona says, throwing in her 2 cents before Millie slams her hands on the table, looking at Loona with anger. No, he's not, you bitch. And she flips Loona the double bird as Loon growls back. Do not talk to my receptionist that way. She's sensitive. Blitzo says as Loona snaps her jaws at Millie in agreement. Yes, I am. You guys are all fucking assholes. A sarcastic high-pitched voice chimes in as everyone stops doing what they're doing to look a human child over on a table with 3 wires from a heart monitor attached to him. Oh, shut up, kid. You're lucky to witness this. Blitzo yells at the mouthy brat. Ugh, this company is such a mess. Moxie gets as resisting the urge to drag his nails down his face as Blitzo chimes back in. Alright, let's go back to talking about my outfit. Nobody was talking about that. Loona snapped as she could feel brain cells dying dealing with the whole situation, which is why I'm trying to get that bowl rolling. So, how does it look? It's good, right? Blitzo says, trying to be the center of attention. The mouthy child starts with his crap again. It's literal hell. He detaches the tubes of the heart monitor and stands up, having to pretend to be paralyzed so you fuckshits wouldn't kill me. But now I want that. I want death. He then shoves a finger at Blitzo. You are a selfish, greedy clown. And I'm a kid, we're supposed to like clowns. Even the creepy ones. Moxie taking offense and trying to stick up for Blitz. Hey, now. That's not very. The human cuts him off. If I wanted to hear from a spineless jackass, I'd rip out your spine and ask you some shit, his mouth showing he's been around them way too much at this point. That's my husband you're talking to. Millie says, defending her Mox as the Eddie laughs at them both. That's your husband. Moxie and Millie both snarl at Eddie as he continues. I figured you for a slut, but I didn't know you needed that bad. Then points at Loona and you. Seeing she was being pointed at. What about me? Sounding annoyed and confused, she hadn't even said anything. Before seeing the little shitling cross his arms, nothing, I don't talk to dogs. I'm a cat person, he finished with a smug grin. Loona gives a wide-eyed glare, whines at Eddie with anger, and goes back to looking at her phone, almost pouting, as Blitzo admits, wow. You know, kid, you kind of are a piece of shit, nodding his head and agreeing, yeah, after all. He's kind of a piece of shit. A ping sound comes from Luna's phone. Oh, fuck. Guys, I just got a text from our client. Guess he was the right target after all. She says, genuinely surprised too. Her adoptive father asked, confused as all hell, as Loona points at Eddie. Him? Me? Eddie asked, slightly confused and concerned. Yup, Loona said, putting emphasis on the P, knowing what's coming next. They wanted us to kill an actual child. Blitzo asked, looking surprised before Loona confirmed that's what they're saying. Blitzo stands there shocked before smiling, well, Christ on a stick. I guess there is a god. He draws a flintlock pistol and fires it at Eddie, hitting him in his chest cavity and painting the wall behind him. They take their frustration out on the corpse as Blitzo and Moxie kicking Eddie's body, Millie stabbing him, and Loona recording everything on her phone. The knock on the front door to the office caught Luna's attention, and she was gonna ignore it if Blitzo hadn't leaned over to her. Loony, could you tell whoever is to fuck off unless they have money? Feigning a flat look after starting to enjoy her day watching the mouthy little shit get his due, marching out of the meeting room and to the front office door before yanking it open. If you're not pay. Looking around, there was no one there. Who the fuck still play ding dong ditch? Down here, a voice said as Loona looked down, seeing a small scruffy but fairly well-dressed hellhound. Hell, he probably wasn't even a teen yet, but definitely a runt. I know him, definitely an only child, I think, Loona said, narrowing her eyes at the pup before he snorted and continued, believe me, I'm definitely an only child, but I am here to hire you guys, he finished in a chipper tone. Raising an eyebrow at the child, what, you want us to cap you parents for grounding you, or oh did someone steal your lunch money? Loona said, almost condescending. Snips gets a flat look looking up at the older hellhound. No, my uncle needs some bodies despised of while he's out prepping for some stuff. Looking kind of surprised at the aspect of being hired by hellhounds, Loona was interrupted before she could speak. Look kid, but this establishment is in the business of killing, not cleaning, Blitzo says, appearing from behind Loona, so why don't you? A paper bag comes flying and snacks into his face. What the hell? Open it, Snips interrupts him with a smile and raised eyebrows. Open it, we already shot one. Kai. Blitzo goes quiet looking into the bag, gaining Luna's attention, and she peeks in and goes wide-eyed and almost drops her phone. Blitzo looks back at the kid and back down at the bag. There's more if you can get blood out of the carpet, the kid chimes in a hopeful tone. Sold. When do you need us? Blitzo asked, damn near appearing in front of the kid. Can we go now? Snips asks, point a thumb down the hallway. Absolutely. Oh, 1 second, Mox. Millie, get the hell out here. The van pulls up in front of a small building with a fenced-off gate with a sign that says, all ye who enter here, kiss your ass goodbye. The front doors of the van open with Blitzo and Loona stepping out before the side door opens, showing a sour-looking Moxie in a maid outfit, while Millie wore the same, but was distracted and currently cooing and scratching Snips between the ears. His leg and tail twitching with his tongue hanging out of his snout. A snort left Loona as she tried not to laugh but pointed her phone at him and took a recording of him while he was unaware, plus she had to admit it was cute until the moment was ruined when Blitzo opened his mouth. Okay, that's enough screwing around, you can touch kids on your own time. Millie gaining indignant and angry looks from the two imps in the back. Then hell, what the fuck sir, they both spoke as Snips fell out of the door and quickly got up, now wearing sunglasses, quickly looking around. No one saw that. If it was a statement or a question, no one could really tell. As Loona snorted, Snips quickly walks over to the gate and pokes a few numbers on the keypad and it opens, letting them enter the walkway to the building. Sir, why do I have to wear this exactly? Moxie said, still annoyed and pulling along bags and buckets. You need to look professional, and I for one will have you ruined out company's image, Blitzo said, resting one hand in his lapel and the other pointing up. They walked through the front doors to a small sea of blood and the bodies of demons and imps and the like. The assassins tend to ignore the signs, Snip said with an annoyed look as he hopped around the clean spots, not wanting to track blood any further into the house. All the while the imp team stood still, shocked before Moxie looked up at the ceiling fan. How did he manage to impale 4 bodies onto the fan without knocking it down? He asked, more impressed than anything else at the moment. Snips whipped around and clapped his hands together and pointed them. Dude, I asked him that same thing this morning. In an agreeing tone with his own look of surprise. Blitzo looking away from the small mountain of bodies, glad he smuggled the book with him. Who is your uncle, by the way? He asked, genuinely impressed with the kill count. Snips looks over to him, still pointing his hands at Moxo. If you watch the Blood Dome matches he fights under Red Claw, he says with a shrug. At that moment, 3 pairs of eyebrows shot up, including one tail that immediately shot up and puffed out in shock, while Moxie stared at the small hellhound. Weeks ago. 666 News Studio was packed and as passive-aggressive and well physically aggressive as a lace. Good afternoon, I'm Katie Killjoy, the dolled-up woman said in a customer service kind of way. And I'm Tom Trench. Chaos out at Pentagram City today as a turf war is raging on the west side. The man next to her said in a just as fake tone, looking like the poster boy for a corporate fallout shelter. On their news feed the image of Sir Pentious is shown followed by a crude drawing of Cherry flipping the bird. Between notable kingpin, Sir Pentious, and self-proclaimed spunky powerhouse, Cherry Bomb, Tom said sounding as interested as he could. That's right, Tom. After the recent extermination, many areas are now up for grabs. Demons all over hell are already duking it out to gain new territory. Katie said, pouring onto the interest as a clip of Cherry and Sir Pentious's clash is shown. Those two seem to be really going at it, huh? Tom said, setting up the rehearsed lines to his co-host. Looks like they're fighting tooth and nail, Caddice chimed as she fishes out a tooth and a nail from her mug of coffee for that hot spot. She finished the pun as well as the tooth and nail when she drinks more of her coffee. Looking over at the live broadcast, Tom focused on Cherry, and I'd sure like to nail her hot spot. Somehow managing to wiggles his eyebrows over the mask. Hoo-hoo. Coming up next, we have an exclusive interview with the daughter of Hell's own head honcho, who's here to discuss her brand new passion project. All that and more after the break. Katie said before she rounded on Tom, eyes beginning to glow as she crushes her mug in her hand. Suck it up, you little. By the station cuts to a break before she finishes. Off to the side away from the cameras, but not quite far enough to ignore Tom's whimpering, a hyper-blonde and a white-haired woman could be seen getting ready to go on. The darker woman exhales. Okay. You remember what to say? She asked, prepping her girlfriend, watching her inhale before the pale woman gave a confident yes. Let's do this. Gaining a serious look at her girlfriend's response. Just look at me and I'll mouth it to you, she instructed, wanting her to succeed. Homian, baggy. The pale woman starts limbering up and stretching. I know what to say. I just feel like we need toy. Don't know, she says, rambling a bit as she grabs and throws a donut across the room. Make things sound more exciting. Gaspuo. What if I see Vaggie cutting Charlie off? Finishes her sentence. Sing a song about it. You knew I was gonna say that. Charlie says as she boops Vaggie on the nose in a random act of affection. Because I know you, Vaggie says as she adjusts Charlie's bow again, but please don't sing. She says, shaking Charlie a bit. This is serious. Well, you know, I'm better at expressing myself and my goals through song. Charlie says before hopping onto a nearby table with show tune flourish and donuts. But life isn't a musical, hon, Vaggie said, placing her hands on hips. Charlie concedes a bit, but I have these other ideas of what to say. She starts bouncing a bit as she shows Vaggie a piece of paper covered in marker or crayon. The highlighted bits are the best part. Vaggie looks on, confused for a bit. It's all highlighted, she said, and squints at the paper. Is this a drawing? The happy bubble of a demon Durst's. Yes. That's the happy ending, see? She begins to fantasize about a happier time for any who honestly wanted everyone smiling and happy in heaven. Pinching the bridge of her nose, Vaggie says, I don't think it's that simple. Just please follow the talking points we went over and… She grabs and pulls Charlie's to face hers. Sing. Okay, Fee, and in a whining British accent, I'll just have to resort to my impeccable improv skills. She salutes Vaggie as she walks over to Killjoy. Charlie tries to be as calm as she can, nervously introduces herself. I'm Charlie, as she tries to go for a handshake from the woman. Katie, Killjoy, she says in a lackluster tone as she blows out the smoke from her cigarette. I'd say it's a pleasure to meet you, but that would be a lie, she says, throwing away her cigarette. And you can put that away, she gestures to Charlie's hand. I don't touch the gaze. I have standards. Thrown for a loop, Charlie responds, yeah. How's that working out for ya? She starts to nervously shift around. Starting to lose patience. Look, my time is money, so I'll keep this short. Katie says as she pokes Charlie, you're not here because we wanted you here. You're here because Jeffrey couldn't make it for his cannibal cooking segment. She said, letting her annoyance be known. You might be some royal big shot, she says in a snide tone and fluffs her hair, but that doesn't mean shit to me. I'm too rich and too influential to give a flying fuck about what some tux-wearing demon, as she raises her hands and makes air quotes, princess wants to advertise. While Tom can be seen shaking his head in disapproval as Katie boasts about her wealth and influence to Charlie. But I is as far as Charlie can get before Killjoy pokes her chest again, so don't get cute with me, honey, or I will fucking bury you. Before a voice cuts her off and we're live. One of the camera crew calls out and Killjoy rushes back to her desk, holding papers while cracking her neck. Welcome back. So, Charlotte. The woman says in her fake tone once more. It's Charlie, she corrects and smiles nervously as a spotlight flashes her way. Her facade wavering for a second before she carried on, whatever. Tell us about this new passion project you've been insistently pestering our news station about. Killjoy says, holding in her outburst by clenching her pen. Charlie looks around as Vaggie motions her to go on. Well, she nervously starts before trying to center herself. Clears, as most of you know, I was born here in hell, and growing up, I always tried to see the good in everyone around me, she continues in a hopeful tone. Hell is my home and Charlie susses as slug blood splatters across her cheek as Killjoy had found something to take her annoyance out on. She then wipes off and continues, "You are my people. We just went through another extermination." Baggy gives Charlie 2 thumbs up for continuing on track as Killjoy quickly starts to lose interest. "We lost so many souls and it breaks my heart to see my people being slaughtered every year. No one is even given a chance," Charlie says, slamming a hand on the table, and walks up from Killjoy's desk. "I can't stand idly by while the place I live is subjected to such violence. So, I've been thinking, isn't there a more humane way to hinder overpopulation here in hell?" She walks around the audience. "Perhaps we can create an alternative way to change souls through redemption," she says as she throws her arm around one of the newscast staff members. "Well, I think yes. So that's what this project aims to achieve," she says, returning to Killjoy's desk. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm opening the first of its kind. A hotel that rehabilitates sinners." Her broadcast is being shown at many locations throughout hell, from homes to bars and smart devices, which demons, and at this location being watched by 2 in particular. "Do you think she can do it?" Snips asked from his seat on the older beast's shoulder. "Don't know honestly, this place is pretty insane in some parts from what I've seen so far," Naru shrugged, watching on. "She's nervous and unsure, but her heart's in the right place at least when it comes to wanting better for her home, especially since she's the princess of this place." He continued, folding his arms over his chest as he ignored looks from passing demons and imps, but the hellhounds were sticking far out of arm's reach. But curious, apparently whatever he smelled like was enough to warrant worry, but the kid didn't notice, or at least no longer did. "I like her, she's nice," Snip said in a chipper tone from his perch, wishing Hell's princess worked at the adoption agency instead of the mean people. Maybe she would have found a family that wanted him, shaking off the thought and the lump growing in his throat. "Well, I think she can do it, plus she's got 1 person so far and stuff, so it's a start," he said, distracting himself, bringing up a point, tilting his hooded head towards him. "1 test run. Already, that's hopeful. At least maybe she might just be able to do it," Naru said before looking around, hearing a vehicle slow to a stop a bit up the road and across the street, then looking back at the screen. "Yup, apparently he's a porn star spider that did a lot of drugs," Snip said in a matter-of-fact tone as Naru's eyebrows shot up. "Well, that is certainly a combination," he said, a bit perplexed before continuing, "Hopefully he's sticking to it, so maybe he wants to change. So good for him." Looking around a bit, hearing some commotion. "Yeah, and he's really recognizable. I saw what he looked like on the news before. Fluffy white fur, a pink striped shirt, pink gloves." The sound of a door closing made Naru look over at the car once more, doing a double take. "A single red eye and black boots, pink spots," he interrupted. "Yeah, how did you know?" Snips asked before crawling over Naruto's head and looking into his eyes upside down. He found himself being picked up around his midsection and pointed towards where Naru was looking. "Oh," was all Snip said as his whole aura took on a flat tone. Looking at the spider in questions, he secured a small white bag in the fluff sticking out of his shirt. "Well, that doesn't bode well." Hopping out the car, Angel thought, "Gotta love when your plug is reliable. Now to get out of here before anyone could seize. You probably shouldn't be doing that shit." A child's voice startled the ever-loving hell out of him. He whipped around, looking down, ready to tell the little tattletale off, only to be looking at the legs of what looked to be a hellhound as his eyes traveled up. "The damn tree trunk walking could best describe this fucker in front of him." Tilting his head back and seeing whoever it was had at least a head and a half of hide on him, and on his shoulder sat the kid in question, to have him a heart attack. "Charlie said you were doing good with your drug stuff," the kid said in a flat tone that drew an indignant wah from the spider. "Apparently she thinks you've been on your best behavior. She's on the news right now, talked about you not too long ago," Naru said, not sounding impressed. "Oh, who the hell are you two supposed to be? The morality police?" Angel said, getting annoyed like anything he did was any of their business. "Well, at this point I'm just wondering how that girl put any faith in you. As far as I can tell, it's hotel things started what, couple days ago?" Naru asked with a raised eyebrow hidden by his hood before Snips chimed in. "I think it's been a week or 2. "BHFFT, wow, a bit better, but not by much," Naru snorted, thinking maybe the hotel was gonna crash and burn if this guy was the test run. Taking offense, Angel geared up to curse both the squeaker and the giant fur bag out. "First off, you both can get hit by a fucking." An explosion rocked the area before he could finish. All 3 look up the road to see the 2 from the news still fighting and turning buildings into parking lots, sending anyone in their path scrambling her to pieces. "Ah shit." Cherry Angel started to take off towards the fighting. "Wait, hold up a minute," the squeaker from earlier yelled, stopping him. "The hell do you want from my life?" the spider said, being the ever smart ass. "Charlie is already on TV, right? If you get seen, the mean lady is gonna use it against her and she's already having a hard time," the pup said, genuinely worried, only to be met with a flat look. "And that's my problem, how?" the spider said, truly not giving a damn. Ignoring him, the young hound tapped Naru's hood, making him look over. "You're super tough, right?" the kid asked. "Yes," was the confused answer he received. "Tough enough to beat up that guy?" Pointing at the egg and explosive toting machine, the kid asked hopefully. "Pretty sure, but why?" Naru asked, trying to figure out where this was going. You can help his friend in the nice hotel, lady, and Kunjoy can shut up, Snip said with a small growl at the end, slightly amusing the older beast. You really don't like her, but it's not our business, kid. But what if it helps Charlie with her plan and she can help make stuff better? Plus I'm almost out of ear money and sleeping in a real bed would be nice. At that, Snips crawled on Naru's head once more, with only his eyes poking over the hood's brim. Red and white puppy dog eyes stared into glowing red and blue before the elder beast's eye twitched. More explosions went off down the road. I'd fuck this. Angel Dust turned to run again, but was grabbed as the kid ran around to the front of him. His shirt was released. Don't worry, the situation is being taken care of, the squeaker said, as Angel just fussed over his clothing and smoothed it out, turning around to curse out the larger hound for grabbing him, is only to have his words die in his throat. The sounds of cracking and grinding could be heard as Naru was pulling a fire hydrant from the ground before the cement gave way and murky water started firing up from the ground as he finished pulling the metal shaft that it was connected to completely out and setting it over his shoulder like a baseball bat. His hood now blown off by the water, Angel Dust got an actual look at the now unfamiliar thing, then he made eye contact and a feeling started set in. The feeling growing in him felt akin to being at the zoo, and the lion's cage was open, the beast watching, staking behind the open door, scrutinized and picked apart, reminding him of other beings of hell that his contract holder had no choice but to play nice with, angry things that had their pick of the food chain kinds of freaks. Stay here and keep him out of trouble, though that the hound was gone, leaving Snip staring at Angel Dust, who was still stuck there calming down from the panic. Jerry Bomb hoisted the rocket launcher over her shoulder and aimed at Serpentius, returning after the last wave. If dumbass eggs and bombs, fucking annoying lispy bastard, you done spamming your parental fuck-ups yet? As she took out more eggs. Oh yes, of course, just after you die, Serpentius said. Between the two he had more resources on hand and was pushing her back from his observation deck of his already slightly broken machinery. The sound of crunching and metal could be heard as something shot through the lower bays and continue its way up until the control room and flew by Serpentius. Boss, that a fucking javelin. The machinery around him grinned, sparked and caught fire as the ship slowly went lower until it hit ground level. Jerry stood there shocked, wondering where the hell that big ass piece of metal came from, cause it sure as hell wasn't her, until she heard heavy footsteps behind her. You're Angel's friend, right? The voice startling her unfamiliar. She almost whipped around and fired until it processed what was asked. Kisa, he's a friend of mine, she said, confused, wondering who this damn wall was. Good, then he owes you a favor and he can't be seen getting into trouble, Naru said as he looked over and could hear rattling from the downed ship as more eggs came out. You have to be joking. Of all the things to use for this shit, he thought. Well yes, a lot of them were armed, but you throw a rock you could probably take out 2 or 3 by accident. Actually looking around and seeing a chunk of concrete with rebar bit sticking out, he grabbed it before whipping it like a frisbee towards an incoming group, popping them and spilling yolk everywhere. Looking over at Cherry, he asked, this guy isn't that bright, is he asked, making her cackle. Nope, just a real annoying Tinker Toy sandbox asshole. So let's stomp this fucker out, she said with a big toothy grin. Back at the studio. Wow. A grey demon among the crowd suddenly grows shadowed. That was shit. He heckled after Charlie finished her song. Everyone in the audience, including Killjoy and Trench, begin to laugh at Charlie. Charlie looks crushed and devastated and slumps back down to her seat. Others voice their disinterest in their boos from the newsroom outwards. What in the 9 circles makes you think a single denizen of hell would give 2 shits about becoming a better person? You have no proof that this little experiment even works. You want people to be good. Just because. Katie continues to laugh. Well, we have a patron already who believes in our cause and he's shown incredible progress, Charlie says to the woman who feigns shock. Oh. And who might that be? Charlie tries to look smug and confident, hoping the answer is good enough. Oh, just someone named Angel Dust. The porn star Tom asks before Katie turns to him menacingly. You fucking would, Tom, before she turns back to Charlie. In any case, that's not even an accomplishment. I'm sure you could get that hooker to do anything with enough booger sugar and lube, she motions, doing a crude gesture. Oh, I beg to differ. Charlie begins to count on her fingers. He's been behaved, clean, and out of trouble for 2 weeks now. Breaking news. Killjoy shoves Charlie away from her desk as she addresses the audience and camera. We are receiving word that a new player has entered the ongoing turf war. Let's go to the live feed. The live feed shows Naru punting a car, making it slide and flip over repeatedly, crushing multiple eggs over, with Cherry throwing grenades at Serpentius, with visible laughter in the background as Charlie stares at the screen in shock, getting a strange feeling. I feel like something's been averted. The strange feeling continuing as the feed went on before the feed zoomed in on the sparking ship. Suddenly Cherry was pushed out of the way as Serpentius's ship was repaired enough to fire 2 of its heavy guns, launching a bomb each before they broke. One striking the Hellhound and making him stagger back, and the other detonating on impact, setting everything around him ablaze with him no longer in sight. 80 Killjoy looks at the audience. Oh shit folks, it seems this new player is out of the game, how unfortunate, but oh well that's the name of the gamgam. Would what so you mean he's getting back up? Looking back at the feed, everyone from eggs to audience stopped as they watched a shadowy figure in the rise from a crouched standing in the all but nuclear fire. A deep growl carrying clear as day could be heard through the broadcast. They watched the figure lower his head as his shoulders raised, then his head snapped back and for a few seconds, everything got quiet as bubble grew in the fire until it popped and chaos broke loose. The glass in the immediate area shattered, even the news camera splintered, and the eggs were all wiped out, their little worlds exploding as the vibrations from the roar traveled reaching unintended listeners of all kinds. But the last of the streetlights that remained flickering showed him to what remains of the cameras. A deep red coat and a body and ears far larger than any hellhound should be, but the most menacing thing was its eyes, neon-like red and blue trailed in the air as he stalked toward Serpentius, who was trying to crawl away or for a weapon of some kind. His hand coming across a chain binder, launching it at the freak of nature walking towards him in the hopes of giving him enough time to get away. Unfortunately those hopes were dashed as the beast threw his arm out and allowed it to be wrapped by the chain before he stood still. Bringing the chained arm up to his face, he stared at the length of the chain for a few seconds before looking back at Serpentius, then opened his mouth chomping down, ripping away the layers of chain, shredding it and letting it drop away from his arm. His jaws moved chewing the bits, the sound of grinding and crunching now filling the airways for the last working mic. How the fuck what the fuck? Serpentius dropped the weapon, wide-eyed shock. Him and that crazy bitch fought for hours, but this fuzzy psycho shows up and the whole thing goes up in smoke. You know, at first I was gonna kick your ass and get this shit over with, Naru said between crunching on the metal before spitting it out. The bit sounds like pennies bouncing across the street. But you made this slightly personal. His eyes blazed brighter and he began stalking closer. Wah what? Wait Atch. Serpentius's scramble backwards was cut off by clawed iron-like hand clutching onto his head and lifting him. I can't tell you just difficult it is to piss me off. Naru's voice changing to a growl, his face twisted into a snarl. The fuck did I even do to you? The snake demon asked frantically, trying to escape before the hand gripped on tighter, a new wave of pressure growing on his brain, making him go limp, losing motor functions for a few seconds. Do you have any idea how much it hurts to get shot in the by a mortar shell? No. Well, let's see if this hurts more. Naru roared, opening his mouth and clamping down on the snake's skull, spraying blood as half of it was torn away. Back at the news broadcast. Killjoy and Trench watched the feed shocked, then proceed to look at each other and do jazz hands ratings. They said excited as Charlie stares at the live feed in distress. All her life she had seen so many different beings in hell and the variety of sinners. There weren't many that had taken the form of something hellhound-like, but the ones that did were basically glorified pumped-up werewolves, so this was either a sinner that could join the hotel or there was something new in hell. Something new in hell. Charlie hopped up in giddiness before taking off around the table, grabbing Vaggy's hand, dragging her along. We gotta find him. Charlie said, running them through the door. Wait, what? Was Vaggy's distressed response. Killjoy looks back at the camera. Well, it sure looks like there's a new kid on the block. She pauses. Well, more like breaking the block, she chuckled. Are her own wittiness. Tom chuckled before following up. He sure is Katie, but question, who is the mystery beast that's made one hell of an entrance at this? A still image of Naru snarling, his eyes alight with rage, was displayed with a question mark next to it. In the elevator going down to the ground floor, Charlie couldn't stop bouncing around at the new aspect of the second candidate or meeting the new hell species. Isn't this so exciting? Charlie said, hugging her girlfriend, her eyes twinkling, while Vaggy on the other hand looked apprehensive of the whole thing. Are you sure you want to go meet this guy? You saw how violent he was. Pretty sure he ate that snake guy's brain. She finished, feeling her skin crawl. The elevator doors opened as Charlie rushed them and headed for the front door. I'm sure he perfectly reasonable, Charlie said in a chipper tone before her phone vibrated, showing Angel Dust's picture. Minutes later. The royal family limousine can be seen driving back to the hotel. Charlie sits next to Vaggy with her hands clasped, fingers laced together in front of her face, her eyes twinkling more than even last time as she bounced in her seat. Angel Dust rummaged about trying to find alcohol in the vehicle and failing with an attitude. Would it kill you to taco munchers to have a drop of alcohol in this damn thing? Angel rudely said, getting a rise out of Vaggy. Was that you trying to be sexist or racist? Groaning, Angel replies, whatever pisses you off more. Is there seriously no liquor in here? Vaggy sits further back into the seat and, resisting the urge to grab her knife and stab the porn star, she crosses her arms. I'm gonna kill him. Is it really necessary for you both to be bickering right now? Capturing he arguing pair's attention as the wolf spoke up from his spot on the floor at the other end of the limousine. He sat with his arms folded and cross-legged. They had assumed he was asleep. Once he put his head down, the smaller hellhound had been the first to pass out on the seating next to him, using the remains of Naru's jacket as a pillow. Raising his head back up and looking at the other three, one of his eyebrows lifting up at the bouncing one as he heard a whisper scream. Even his eyes are different colors. The wolf had repressed a snort seeing her start kicking her feet. Shaking his head he continued, so my tiny friend here says you're on a hotel that's trying to redeem sinners. Looking over at Angel and slightly narrowing his eyes, knowing what he was up to earlier. What the spider said, trying to seem innocent and failing as Vagiab instantly got suspicious. What? I didn't even blow anybody up or get involved, Angel said, trying to defend himself before looking over at Charlie, now looking at him and Vaggy pinning him with a flat look. Okay, so I went out and got a little blow. Big deal, the spider finally admitted, causing Charlie's shoulders to sag in disapproval. What if someone had seen you? I was just on the news. It would have been horrible for us, she said, thankful that the night went mostly smooth. Meh, I doubt it would have been that bad, Angel said with a nonchalant shrug, causing Naru to fassip him and pissing Vaggy off. She grits her teeth and speaks in her native language, Con Unimirta Malparito Hi Hota. The limousine arrives at the hotel as the hotel door opens, revealing a very old and dirty establishment. Vaggy throws herself on the couch, facing the wall. Ugh. Angel dust rummages through the fridge, leaning by the wall and grabbing a box of Popsies. He looks at them and shrugs. Hey, it's probably a good idea to get some actual food in this place. You know, to feed all the wayward souls you got in here. Ahaha. Ahaha. He closes the fridge door and sees Charlie looking stressed and thinking to herself. Quietly he contemplates comforting Charlie but decides to back off, not really knowing what to say. Heavy footsteps and light snores let themselves be known as Naru walked into the room, Snips still knocked out as he sat on the larger beast's shoulders using his head as a pillow. Is there anywhere to get stuff to eat nearby? The wolf asked, looking around the disheveled place. Mostly fast food spots, Vaggy answered from the couch, turning over and sitting up. His ear flickering, he nodded and walked over to her, carefully picking up Snips and laying him on the couch near her. Could you keep him out of trouble for a bit? I gotta use the can, he says, walking across the room towards the hall. Confusion setting in, Vaggy called out, wait, how do you know where it is? Knowing the shaggy giant had never been here before, she watched him raise a finger up to his ear. I can hear the water in the pipes, was all he said, before disappearing behind the first floor bathroom door. Staring wide-eyed, good ears, she said, impressed, before she felt the smaller hound shift around and cuddle into her, looking down, seeing him curled up, resting his head on her lap. Needy little guy, aren't you? Vaggy quietly asked as she rested a hand on the pup's head, running fingers over his fur. Charlie, smiling at the moment, exits the hotel and tries to contact her mother. Taking out her phone, going through her contact list, she tapped on one of the names. The phone gets out a screaming chime as it rings, but goes to voicemail. Hey, Mom. I know I keep calling and you must be busy, really busy, but, the interview went okay. Well, the laughing aside and the turf war, we met the red hellhound. I'm not sure what he is actually, but he's definitely new to hell, but he doesn't act like a new sinner, but he's really nice at least. She stands up, looking at the sky. It feels like good things are gonna happen. Hope I hear from you soon, Mom. Love you, bye. Charlie hangs up and walks back in and leans by the door, in thinking of all the ways the day could have gone, as a sudden knock can be heard from the other side of the door, surprising her, and she contemplates on whether or not to open the door, but decides to open it anyway. The door is slammed shut, panic etched across Charlie's face. Buffett, she tries to open the door again, seeing the same toothy grin low. She slams door against his face once more. Hey, Vaggy. What? Vaggy asked, looking up from the fuzzy stress ball stand into her girlfriend. The radio demon is at the door. Charlie said, sounding stressed. What? She said, relaxed mood ripped away. Angel Dust strolls back into the room and takes the popsicle from his mouth. Ahoo. Ignoring the spider, what should I do? Charlie asked, freaking out. Well, don't let him in, was the annoyed response she got. Charlie seems to consider for a few moments before curiosity wins out, deciding to disregard Vaggy's advice, and opens the door. May I speak now? The toothy man asked politely. Charlie, surprised by his manners, she replies, you may. The overlord reaches a hand out. Alistair. Pleasure to be meeting you, sweetheart. Completely ignoring personal space and pulling Charlie towards him in a side hug. Quite a pleasure. Walking past her, he continued. Excuse my sudden visit, but I saw your fiascos on the picture show and I just couldn't resist. What performances? The singing, the explosions. I haven't been that entertained since the stock market crash of 1929. Ha, running his hand over the McStaff so many orphans. The harpoon is points towards his chest. Stop right there, Cabron hi-ho de para. I know your game and I'm not gonna let you hurt anyone here, you pompous cheesy talk show shitlord. Vaggy says, angered by Alistair being there. The loss of her on the couch and the loud voices woke Snips up as he sat up, one of his ears drooping down and the other points up, a groggy confused look on his face. Alistair using finger to move the harpoon away. Dear, if I wanted to hurt anyone here. The air around them became static and floating symbols began floating eyes too into his demonic form, freaking out Charlie and Vaggy. I would have done so already, he said with a wider than what should be smile. A startled yelp caught everyone's attention as they looked over the couch, seeing the pup peering over the back of it looking at Alistair. A muffled growl soon started to be heard down the hall. The two women of the house shared a wide-eyed look, remembering the other guest, their very destructive guest. Oh shy, a door was blown off the hinges and shattered into the wall in front of it. Black smoke poured out into the hallway from the now doorless room, making its way to the sitting room. Well, that's peculiar, the radio demon said before a red-clawed hand appeared, dug into the frame, leaving gouges. Oh no, oh no, oh no, Charlie said, rushing down the hallway to stop the house from being destroyed. Whipping around the frame and seeing the Clint butler. No, that's not right, the hell was he? These weren't the currently important worry. The floorboards groaned and splintered beneath the heavy beast. No, Charlie was panicking, already hearing the signs of a busted floor and remembering seeing what the wolf did earlier to the ship made of metal. Hauling ass into the living room hoping to stop the now charging hell beast. Passing by the couch she could hear someone hyperventilating. Realization set in as she skidding to a stop on the carpet and run to the couch and grabbing the freaked out fuzzball. Hey little guy, it's okay, holding Snips up to eye view by his armpits, feeling his heart pounding in his ribs. That's gotta be crappy to wake up to, huh? Just try to breathe, Charlie said, getting the pup to focus on her. Most fully grown and even older residents of hell would freaking haul ass out of the area for turf wars alone, but an overlord, however, the notion of being in the area with one could mean your life, or well, your ass was being signed away if one of them woke up in a bad mood. Running into one was a fear in itself for a few lower classes of demons, so for a child, hellborn or not, couldn't be good for him. Even mom was a buffer when dad was going too overboard at times. Hugging him and petting his head as the pup slacked in her arms. See, you're all good, she said in soothing voice, before a roar ripped past them, making them both jump, a rush of air nearly yanking her off her feet and reminding her of the building's impending destruction. Clutching the fuzzball in her arms and sprinting behind smoking beast. I think he's mad, Snip said, feeling the heat radiating off of his friend as they trailed behind him. No longer focused on the radio demon, Vaggie watched the wolf clear the distance from the back of the first floor to closing in where she and the more so unwanted guest stood. Well, isn't this interesting? The hollow voice of Alistair passes her ears. She quickly realized the look that was probably back on his face and knew the fight that would happen could do more than just damage the building, it would level it and her Charlie's dream and hopes for the hotel. Knowing telling the psychotic entity to leave wouldn't do anything but be ignored, and if the growing static sound was anything to go off of, the radio demon would be happy to egg the fight on. Running at the hell beast trying to cut him off, she waved her arms as per gran amigo stoop. Holding her arms out in front of her and clenching her eyes shut, hoping not to get knocked out of the way. The sound of something scraping to a stop met her ears, making her sigh in relief, hoping this could all be stopped before the hotel paid the price. Why did it feel so hot all of a sudden? Opening her eye once more and looking up at the beast, she could see why. The smoke that churned off of him was slowing down, but heat coming off his body had yet to subside. The black hazy lining and smoke around his body was proof that whatever he was doing, or what his power is, seemed to be fire related, but it felt wrong in a sense. "Oh amigo, you gave me a scare, you mind relaxing a bit, Wolfie?" Vaggie said, realizing that he had yet to look at her. He was staring at something behind her and had yet to blink, nor had the snarl left his face. Turning around she could see why. Alistair stood there, a smile far too damn wide, but between his pupils seeming like they're missing and the shadows behind him moving and coiling, she understood either would attack at provocation. "Hi-ho de puta, sabia que no tramabas nada bueno," Vaggie said, stomping her foot down as she focused on the red-suited demon. Charlie came to a stop next to the large beast and leaning away from the heat coming off of him, looking confused before moving over to Vaggie. "Thanks for getting his attention. I got a bit distracted," Charlie said in a thankful and relieved tone. Turning back and smiling at her girlfriend, "Any time, but let's separate these two before some scratches and floorboards are the least of our worries," Vaggie said, grabbing Snips from Charlie. "How you doing, fuzzball?" she asked, looking down at Snips as he shrugged. "I'm okay, but Psycho Suit over there is never allowed to be an alarm clock ever again. Is his nose smoking?" he said, trying to make a joke out of being freaked out earlier, but noticed his friend was even breathing the smoke. Nodding her head with a smirk, she says, "Yeah, Alistair sold'd really be allowed near anybody, it's bad juju." Happy that he was in good spirits, "So mind helping me with tall, red and angry?" she said, holding him up to eye level with the wolf. "Whoa, he's super focused," Snip said, looking at his friend who still hadn't moved in his tense snarling state, waving a small fuzzy hand in front of Nara's face before he stopped and a mischievous smile grew. Looking back at Vaggie, Snip says, "If he bites my hand off, this was still a good idea." Wait, what? Boop, a snorting sound and a roaring sneeze sounded through the hotel as Naru rubbed at his nose. "The fuck?" he said, fighting back another. Still being held up in the air, Snips hadn't said anything or moved, with his hand still pointed in front of him. "You okay, little guy?" Charlie asked, peeking around trying to see his face, only to stop and her face growing a look akin to a mixture of concern and someone eating a raw lemon. The cross Snips' arm up to his neckline was covered in sooty black snot that was slowly oozing down him. A few seconds passed before he tried to shake the goop off him as a scream let loose from the pup that almost scared Vaggie into dropping him. Current day. BPPHHHFFTTT haha. The sounds of laughter could be heard from the occupants of the room, the loudest being the hellhound set upon the steps next to her younger species member. Beauty turned you into a snot tarp. With that, Luna went into another laughing fit at the pup's expense. Snip sat with his arms folded with a flat look on his face. "I'm glad my suffering brings you joy," he said sarcastically. The only one in the room seemingly feeling bad for the pup was Millie, even though she did giggle a bit. "I'm sure it was horrible, sweetie, I'm sorry," the big-hearted imp said as she gave him a pat. Another body was rolled into a portal in the center of the floor that led to somewhere that was on fire. All Snips knew was that it was hot and he couldn't look directly into it for some reason. "Ahia woo-oh, if it makes you feel any better, kid, some people would pay for that to happen to them from him," Blitzo said, coming down from his own laughter, wiping a tear away as he did so. Confused Snips asks, "Why would anyone want to get that gunk on them? It's gross," Snip said, sounding disgusted. "Oh, believe me, there's lots of people that want to get slimed by your uncle," Luna muttered, and she looked at a picture some took of Naru when he won and gained his title. That doesn't make any sense, nose gunk is gross," Snip said before Millie intervened, distracting him from the innuendo's meaning. Luna focused on the image of the battle-ragged roaring wolf. He was still regenerating from the fight. It was gnarly. Part of his right ear was missing from the center, upwards gashes along his body showing muscle and organ in a few spots along his stomach, a chunk missing from his forearm showing the bone, and a hole in his chest. Over his head, however, he held the slowly burning corpse of an overlord that almost killed the daughter of some record label head, and oddly enough her dad's booty calling his daughter. Now bystanders getting caught up in the fights was nothing new, but the guy went after the VIP seats during the fight. It was an open attempt, plus a violation of a decree. Lucifer made himself to keep hell running smoothly and keep the nobles off limits. The punishment would be far worse than just death, and the worst case scenario you might even have Lucifer himself seeing to your torture personally if he got his hands on you, but luckily enough for the girl and the Gosha's Big Red and Fuzzy decided to rise damn near from the dead and play the part of the apex predator. "Fuck, that's hot," Luna muttered to herself, remembering the roar from the pay-per-slay event that she had recorded. The fight had cemented superstar status for the wolf in the short time of revealing himself to Hell. Then he just disappeared, at least by Hell's standards, keeping to himself in the occasional beatdown that people managed to catch him dealing out. He seemed to be a pretty private guy with few places to possibly found. One being the hotel of Charlie Morningstar, an odd friendship, but hey, there's way worse people you could know, and hey, at least she knows where his home is, so that's cool. His home? Tilting her head back and looking up the steps, the realization hit her that he might actually be in the house. She sprung up. "Hey, I'm gonna check around for more bodies," she yelled as she took off up the steps. Stopping, everyone watched as she disappeared. Millie and Moxie seemed to both be holding back a laugh, seeing the group's hellhound possibly running off the meter idle. Snip sat, the head tilted, confused at her sudden departure before he found his voice, "But there aren't any. Why can't you show that kind of initiative?" Moxie Blitzo said in an accusatory tone from his seat on the steps as he rounded on Moxie, who was struggling to push another carcass into the burning portal before he stopped. "Wait, wah?" Luna walked along the hallway, noticing it was barren of any decorations, but seemed to have new paint and small random handprints. It took no guess to figure out who those were from before she stopped walking and stared at what would be best described as a face print. Was the wall dented? "You crazy little shit," Luna snorted out a laugh, imagining Snip slamming his painted face into the wall. She continued walking and chuckling until a different wall decoration caught her eye, a swirl of some kind that slowly closed inward around a large handprint, a very damn large one. She, though, as her hand raised and pressed against it, and saw the size difference. The bottom of her palm resting with prints her hand was surrounded, the tips of her fingers didn't make it past the second knuckle of any of his, even with her claws. Now Luna knew she was a bit on the petite side, and she was still growing, at least for a little while longer, but the mass difference alone was shocking, thinking about the rest of the body that would be attached to that hand. Shaking her head of the lumbering image, she looked around the hallway until her eyes settled on a partially painted red and black door with a dim light coming from underneath, and then a lingering scent hit her nose that filled her stomach with butterflies. Approaching the door, her hand found the knob and twisted. A wave of nervousness washed over her as she peeked into the room, listening for any signs of life in the dim room. The large bed in the back of the room, empty, with a large bed with covers tucked in place with a few books and other things on it. "Wow, he's neat," she said, moving around the room seeing different knickknacks on the shelves until some items caught her attention. "Fucking shit, he keeps them," she said, excitedly fishing her phone out of her pocket, taking a picture of a clean serpent-like skull with a chunk missing out of it and a line of spinal cord and a tank of some kind with a few other parts and weapons. "He fucking keeps trophies," she says, giddily bouncing a bit, and snaps pictures of them before looking around again, and she sees something hanging off a post in the foot of the bed. From here it looked like some kind of leather until she got closer and realized it had holes in it. Picking it up, she held it up and open and realized it was a jacket and was a familiar one at that. This is the same jacket from the store camera, she said wide-eyed, but then she noticed the scent that clung to the jacket. It was his, there was no doubt about it. Fuck, why does he smell so good, she says quietly, closing her eyes and brings the jacket closer and nuzzles it. Smiling, she slipped it on, feeling the weight, but it hung off of her. Why the fuck is this making me happy? The words left her mouth in an annoyed but very content tone. Looking around more, her eyes landed on a chair in front of a computer that was still running, she realized as she rushed over and hopped into the chair. Moving the mouse, the screen flashed back on in the dim room, blinding her for a few seconds. Dumb motherfucker. She flinched away and blinked a few times, adjusting to the brightness, and started looking over the open tabs. Squinting slightly, she moved the cursor over to the browser history before snapping her fingers, finding it absent of anything interesting. Damn it, wanted to see if he was into weird shit. It's all fucking history and language crap, she said, disappointed, slouching back and folding her arms, pouting. Looking around the screen, she notices an email notification bubble. Worst case I can just mark them as unread, she said, clicking on it, and freezes when she sees the name Skin and Bones Records. The hell did they send him? Opening the email and reading through it. No fucking way, she said, sitting at the edge of the chair, scrolling down to a video file, and there he was, his signature jacket and hood missing, with him seated with a mic in front of him. That all it took for her to click on it. Okay, this time let's not belt it out so much, yeah. It was an accident, man. How was I supposed to know the mic was gonna short out and melt the damn thing, and my fucking booth glass got more cracks than a Chicago whorehouse. Loona chuckles at the interaction between the two before hearing a muffled clap drew her attention, watching the Scarlet Beast faceap him and drag his hand down his face before sighing. Okay, I get it, I'll try it softer this time. Thank you, that's all I ask. Okay, starting the track from the top in 3 2 1. Song You Should See Me in a Crown, cover by Emil Bulls. She listened as the melody started. It was eerie, like a random assortment of strange sounds screwed together from a horror flick before he softly started. Mac in her ears, point, and the butterflies flutter stomach again. The song went on, flooding the room with sound, and Loona was loving it as whipped her hair back and forth, head banging when the guitars were at their heaviest and dancing in the chair when the tempo slowed as she kept her focus on him singing in the video, the thoughts running around in her head being fed by the butterflies. Then the song stopped, much to her disappointment, but she continued to watch as the timer on the video slowly was running out. How was that clear all the way through? It was perfect. Helluva session read, though, can you do me one thing next time? What? Can you not blow my shit up on the next track? Oh fuck you. But that the video ended, leaving Loona laughing as she slumped back in the chair, channeling maximum couch potato energy. Ah, he's fucking amazing, she quietly chuckled, starting to calm down. Her eyes widened as she felt the chair shift, and the sound of something being gripped above her head made itself known as she looked up, seeing pearl black claws connected to red furred fingers. Glad I can entertain ya. With her stomach bottomed out at the presence that let itself be known as the chair slowly was spun around, stopping in front of someone, a very tall someone. It was dawning back into her memory just who it was. Woe's room she had snuck into and went snooping around in, whose chair she was sitting in and got caught red-handed literally. Loona's eyes were glued forward like a deer in headlights. My eyes are up here, by the way, the voice said again as she realized how low she was and what she had been looking. Blushing, she forcing her eyes up away from his jean-covered crotch, and it was a ways up. There was just so much of him, even with the shirt and fuzz that covered him. The definition of his body was easy to see up close, and how wide his shoulders were. He could probably wear me on his neck like a damn scarf. Why the fuck is that enticing? Then their eyes met. You're beautiful, she blurted out absent-mindedly. She could say the pictures and videos didn't do him enough justice, especially not those eyes. The darkness of the room showed their unnatural, wonderful blue glow as they focused on her, unmoving, unblinking. A heavy feeling washed over her as he stared down at her, feeling like she was being judged or hunted. Chuckling and seeing her discomfort, Naru raised an eyebrow before reaching forward with his other hand, being mindful of his claws, and trapped her chin between his thumb and second index knuckle. Sit up, that's a horrible position for your back and neck, he said, gently nudged her chin up. The quick whining sound escaped her without meaning to as Loona quickly scrambled into a upright seated position against the backrest of the chair, guided by his hand. Her feet dangled off the floor as she sunk back into the chair's soft leather. Looking up at him, nervousness now running wild in her mind, she fidgeted, not knowing what to do with her hands, before pressing them down to her lap, trying to smile and look as innocent as possible. But from his point of view, she looked like she got caught with her hand in the cookie jar. So you got a name? Naru asked, amused by the situation at this point, already knowing why she's here from her friends downstairs. But why not tease her a bit? Loony, wait, fuck Loona, I'm Loona, momentarily fucking up her own name with an uneasy chuckle, wanting to slam her head into a wall. I think I like Loony a bit more cause apparently your dad. Likes calling you that, he said, chuckling as he let go of her chin, reached over her. The chair leaned back under his grip as her tail started wagging as he towered over her, and the mental images of their position was not helping the situation. A few clicks from above her head and she could hear the tower turning off. Glad you like the song and all, but I gotta make sure any more guests don't go through my stuff, he said, amused, before leaning back as the chair sat normally again. Once he let go and stood up straight and folding his arms. So I can trust you didn't record anything and you'll keep what you saw to yourself, right? He asked in a more serious tone, his eyes narrow and glowing brighter, shaking her head at the tone change. Up, lips are sealed. No worries, she quickly said, shyly fussing with her hair under his withering look. It lasted for a few more seconds before his eyes softened and a smirk grew on his face again. Good to hear, but your friends are waiting for you, he chuckled, moving back, giving her space to stand up and offering a hand for her to stand up. Forcing down a squeal, she grabbed his offered hand, standing up, and stopped, marveling at the differences between the two of them. His palm felt like warm leather padded stone as she rubbed her fingers across his palm. The hell is he made out of, she thought, gripping around his hand. Having fun there, he asked, chuckling at her distraction. Honestly found it cute. Hell, even the reactions of most hellhounds and others demons were like this to some degree, although some a lot more forward than others and a bit too handsy, he thought at the memory of Nifty. His words catching her attention again as she yanked her hands back and hid them behind her, sputtering out sorries as she looked up at him, stuck between feeling mortified for acting like a damn goober and fighting down a floating feeling just being near him. Your friends, remember, he asked, starting to laugh, watching her panic a bit and look around for the door. Shit, right, she said, trying to back up to the door. Way sorry again about the chair and the sneaking into room thing, she exclaimed, almost tripping a few times, making her way out of the room and shyly waving the sleeve of the jacket flapping. Racing down the hall before slowing to a stop and looking down at herself and contemplating, sighing before turning around and hugging the jacket around herself. Damn it, sadly, she trudged back to his room, ready to give back her new favorite object, potentially stealing from a well-paying client that she would definitely hope came back in the future. Didn't feel like the brightest idea. Hey, about your jaw, her voice dying out as she realized the doorway she almost walked through was now occupied by a shirtless wolf. You should do that more often, she said with a dopey expression, biting her lip, looking him over. The sound of snapping fingers in front of her face and his chuckling voice telling her to focus gave her a jolt as she realized what she was doing. Yesaru, her right, shit, right, jacket. Did you want it back? Fighting off the verbal slip up and still stealing glances at his form, Luna managed to get the question out. That's when she realized his face was getting very close to hers as he leaned forward through the door, their noses almost touching. It's yours, the words passing into her ears, but not processing correctly as she stared dead into his blue eyes. What fell out of her mouth as the words registered, finally causing him to roll his eyes and shake his head, a smirk on his face, before he leaned up and spoke softly into her ear. You obviously want it, so keep it as a gift. Now be a good girl and run along. By the time he finished his words and stood upright once more, Luna's tail could be seen arched up, nearly touching the back of her head, and the ear that he spoke into was twitching, as well as another area that she didn't know could twitch like that. Time to go home, time to go home. She needed to go home, thank you, she yelled, and she ran down the hallway, once again leaping off the steps when she reached them. Naru stood there, eyebrows raised at her final reaction. How think I overdid, a little shrugging before he finally shut his door to go shower. Later on. So why did you want to come here again? And this place seems a little on. Eris' voice trails off as he watches some children run by swinging teddy bears with needles sticking out at each other. And that's a fast way to get herpes or syphilis, the wolf said with a flat stare. Think about all the nasty stuff that could be on the needles, feeling a pressure on top of his hooded head when Snips leaned over into his line. If sight cause, I've never been here and didn't think I ever could, Snips simply said with a tiny toothy grin as he started looking around again for fun stuff to do and rides to get on. Plus the imps were talking about it after Millie uncovered my ears. I think someone was saying wired stuff over the phone, the taller guy's phone, the younger hound said, sounding confused at what could have been said. Oh. Strike one, little man. Naru's ear twitched, picking up the annoying voice dripping with condescension not far away. But I hit it. At the second voice, both he and Snips momentarily stopped, recognizing that the imp it came from L. Isn't that the cleaner from earlier? Looking next to him, he see one of the other imps from his house. Oh, they're on a date. Good for them, he said, beginning to walk again. I don't know what to tell ya, buddy. The target, see? It didn't go down. So, yeah. No go, bro. Without the wolf stop walking again, his eye twitching, feeling how full of shit the carny was. Looking back over at the imps, he could see Moxie growling in anger, fishing another bill out of his pocket. He grabs the pistol and fires another cork, hitting the target dead center. The target does not budge. Moxie slaps the pistol in annoyance. The heavens, wrong with this thing. He had good aim. Naru could see it from here, but the target wouldn't budge. Either the gun was too weak or the targets were locked in place, and so he started thinking on whether or not he should get involved. Oh man, a real shame, I tell you, the carny says while mockingly crying at Moxie's anger. The well-mannered imp hisses in anger as he slaps more money on the counter. Another, he says angrily, not willing to give up. With narrowed eyes Naru looked at the situation. Everyone had to make a living, it is what it is in that regard, but unfortunately for the carny, the same imps that he was cheating happened to have gotten paid by him earlier, which means that little shit was stealing money from him by proxy. Hey, wanna get some free stuff kid, Naru said as a wicked grin grew on his face. Snips made it into eye view with a wide grin. Would I ever, smirking at the response, the wolf told him the plan. Elsewhere in the park. An owl man and his daughter could be seen in the audience of tent, a robotic jester performing on stage to a crowd of lacking numbers, the father of the duo gleefully clapping to the music. Ah ho 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 ho, how delightful. He says, unaware that his daughter has thrown her head back in torment, banging her fist on the seat next to her in cringing tournament. Behind him an imp armed with a Chris dagger rises from beneath the seats ready to stab, but the top of his head is quickly blown apart by a shot from Blitzo, who has taken up a position in the gallery behind the back row of seats, while imps scream in absolute fear and run away. Oh. My, what aim you have, Blitzy Stola says in a saucy tone by the end, looking back to the gun-wielding imp before his daughter finally let her frustrations be known. Ugh. I can't do this anymore. Wait a Octavia. Concerned Solas follows behind his daughter, worried about the turn of events, while towards the back Blitzo cycles his rifle and prepares to give chase after his clients. You ha 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 ho ho ho. Is that Blitzo? My sensors spot up the ear. I bet the kiddies are still running away from you, huh? The robotic jester's voice making itself known again as the imp in question addressed the robotic jackass. The O is silent now, he said, becoming testy. Hey, oh, just like your audience always was when you two told your lazy jokes here. The robot jester fired back, beginning to get under Blitz's skin a bit, pulling off his visor and throws them on the ground as he continues his argument with Robo Fizz. Bitch, I make more money killing people than you do being a cheap-ass robo ripoff of an overrated sellout jester. Blitzo says, getting angrier, sparking a bit. The robotic jester continues his taunting. Ooh-hoo. Someone salty. Real or not though, Piaplolo o Avim. Does anybody love you, Blitzo? The jester's voice turning twisted by the end, no. But I'm really good with guns now. Dance, bitch. Blitzo says, slamming a new magazine into his rifle, switches it to full auto and opens up on Robo Fizz. The jester begins doing cartwheels out of the way of the incoming rounds before landing and rapidly spins like a wheel rolling up the stairs to where Blitzo is. He coils himself around Blitzo like a snake, using his own momentum to launch Blitzo over the top of the tent. Oh, fuck me. Unfortunate for both parties, a cart being wheeled with Wally Wackford shown on the side of it. Torches, I say. Get your inconvenient torches here. He said, unaware or the imp about to slam into his cart. When the impact happened, the torches were launched into the surrounding area and began to set the tents and stalls on fire. Oh. I say www. The cart owner cries, trapped under his own busted cart. The green fire begins to spread to all corners of the park, burning and melting. Animatronics flee the tent as Robo Fizz cackles and spins his head with demonic glee at the destruction. Back at the carny stall. A smug cheating jackass holding $600 of Moxie's money, with Moxie himself glaring at him with seething anger. Wow. Man, you're really starting to make this sad, the carnival worker said, causing Moxie to growl more. You know, if you suck, you suck. Guess you won't win your honey here a prize, the condescending fucker said before Millie began to step up. Can it try? A small voice caught them all by surprise. Looking over, Millie was the first to react, picking the pup up in a hug. Hey there little fella, she said in her always welcoming tone, setting him back down as Moxie pat him on the shoulder. Are you here by yourself? This really might not be the best place to. Before Moxie could finish his words, a few people on fire ran by, stunned into silence for a few seconds. Moxie looked back at Snips. Please tell me you're not here by yourself, he said in a flat tone. Nope, he's lurking around, Snip said, turning back to wink at the two of them before looking back at the carny and target. So what's it gonna be? Can I take a shot? You know what, sure kid, I'm generous, the worker said, shrugging, handing Snips the pellet gun. He continues, and since I'm in a good mood, I'll let you get one for free. He chuckled before continuing to count the money he had. Plus I already fleeced that one jackass, it's not like you're gonna get anything anyway, he thought as he watched the mini mutt line up the shot before focusing back on the money. Hong. Ooh, did you see that? Ah fuck. Being startled from his counting, the carny looked up at the target, seeing it bent backwards, whipping his head back to look at the pellet gun, no damn way snatching it out of Snip's grasp before he shot at one of the targets, seeing it ricochet away. I don't know how, but you cheated, you little shit, you get nothing, the indignant carny said, slamming the rifle onto the counter. What do you mean, how could I have cheated? I used your stupid gun, Snips fired back, getting annoyed. I knocked down the target, I get a prize. Isn't that the entire point of this? The pub finished with a louder volume. Listen here you little fucking mud, I know you cheated, so how about you just fuck off, the shitbag carny worker said as he leaned over the counter damn near into Snip's face. Well that's a little rude of you, don't you think, a new voice suddenly said. Yeah, and who the hell asked you? The jackass of an carny started to turn and tell off whoever decided to butt in, only to realize there was now a shadow cast over the young hellhound in the imps at his stand. Oh Shiag. A hand wraps around his neck and lifting him up. You know, for somebody who cheats you're not good at taking your own medicine, are ya? The figure said in a snide tone. Millie looked back and forth between the pup and the giant figure before she realized who it was. Red. She said as the figure raised his free hand and waved. So you're a cheater, you're rude and you suck at your job, tisk tisk. That's a bad combination, friend. Naru clenched his hand a bit more around the already choking carny's neck, seeing veins start to pop up around his face, watching him struggle as his legs kicked around trying to find something to hold himself up with. While this was happening, Snips had hopped over the counter. So which one did you guys wanna get? He asked, hopping on the toy shelves. Oh Mox was gonna get me that one, Millie said happily. I woulda got it if that jerk wasn't a cheater, Moxie said, folding his arms, glaring at the choking imp being held overhead before his cheeks were grabbed and his face was peppered with kisses with Mews accompanying them, hugging his head to her chest. You won it fair and square, my baby has damn good aim. Snip said at the display of affection before he climbed up a few of shelves and tossed their prize down to them. Starting to climb down, he saw one in particular hidden in between a few others. Sweet-eye, though these were sold out of the park, he said, surprised, quickly snatching up a hellhound plushie with purple leg warmers and a green highlight in its hair and stuffed it in his hooded pocket. So we all good here? The hooded wolf asked, taking mild enjoyment in the carny's face slowly turning purple. Yup, I think we're all good. Oh wait, there we go, Snip said, reaching up and running the imp's pockets, pulling out a whiz of cash and tossing it over to their friends. Okay, fire when ready, Snip said, hopping down. A vicious grin grew beneath the hood as the wolf asked one simple question. So ever been to flight school, buddy? The gears turned in the imp's head as he realized what he just said. Ah fuck was all he could think before he was airborne, headed towards the growing flames in the park. Was everything on fire before, Snips asked, confused as he looked around the park. You know what, you're right, I wonder what. Crash, the wolf was interrupted by the impact through the stall. Sir? Moxie asked, surprised at the sudden entrance. Oh, hey, guys. You should probably go make sure Stolas is okay. I've got some unfinished business to take care of, Blitzo said dazed by the fall, but becoming more coherent by the end as he gets up and sees his target as well does everyone else. Alright, well this seems like a really weird you caused this problem, so I'ma go, Naru said, picking up Snips and staring at the burning robot jester for a bit before following after Moxie and Millie. What the hell kind of beef could somebody have with a robot clown? Draws his flintlock pistol, cocks it, and fires at the now burning Robo-Fizz. The impact of the bullet spins Robo-Fizz's head around, but when he spins, his head spins back to its correct position. He's unharmed by the shot, having caught the bullet in his teeth. Oh, what a mouth. The words fall out of his head. Blitzo immediately grimaces when he realizes what he just said. The Robo-Fizz coils himself up into his rolling form again, charging straight at Blitzo. He leaps out of the way as his enemy hits the booth, destroying it in a large explosion. Several pieces of shrapnel and burning prizes shoot in all directions as the camera follows the severed heads of a few plushies. The piece of stuffed animal strikes a young imp boy in the head near by knocking him unconscious. The second, a photographer takes a picture of the imp family. God damn it, Nathan. You ruined another bloody photo. Why were you even born? Elsewhere. Stoll is still chasing his daughter through the park, calls after her Octavia. Only to be answered with her telling him to leave her alone. Octavia runs into a building called the Fun House. Inside, Stoll is confronted with a surreal room of eyes, tubes, spikes, mirrors, and disembodied hands. He searches further into the room, looking around for where his daughter could have gone. A shadow appears behind Stolas as a random imp jumps upon his back. I think I'm supposed to be bodyguarded right now. Stolas says, mildly worried, before a large red hand wraps around the imp's skull. The little bugger is quickly whipped out of eye view, with the sound of breaking glass and walls being heard. Moxie and Millie appear in the entryway, their guns raised, but lower them once they see the assassin imp used to make a new window to the building, and who did it. Stolas wipes imp blood off of sleeve. Ah, Wolfie, dear boy, thank you for your timely intervention, but where is Blitzy? He's my knight in shining armor, not you, my fuzzy friend, he says, a bit confused as Nair raises an eyebrow. Millie looking a little unsure how to explain he's busy before Moxie chimes in, being a fool, his words accompanied by a flat stare in a dry tone and a few chuckles from the nearby hellhounds. Stoll is ever the curious what kind of fool? He asked before Mox served another answer back, the everything is now on fire kind. Another gunshot rang out, causing every to look out through the newly made hole in the building and the sound of Blitzo cursing in the background. Well then, Stolas says, a look of understanding passing over his face before he moves to head after his child, once more effortlessly dodging between two swinging pendulums and heads down a tunnel into an adjoining room. There, he sees Octavia riding in circles in apple-themed rail cars, crying. Octavia Stolas discards the Lululand hat, which in response to his emotional state, has gone from a goofy grin to a sad frown. I take it, you are not having fun. Begin to realize he might have been wrong about this outing. The upset owlet crossed her arms and raced away. I didn't even want to come here. Her crying cutting deeper into him. I'm sorry, sweetie. I thought you loved it here. Octavia has a few sniffs. When I was a kid and my parents didn't hate each other and my dad didn't flirt with some weird redhead the entire time, she said, voicing her discomfort with everything more and more. I'm sorry, Via. I'm sorry for everything happening right now. I know it's a lot. I should have listened. Stolas tried to find the right thing to say, but could only realize he should have been comforting her, not treating today like a joke. I just want to go home, but home doesn't even feel like home anymore. You ruined it, all of it, cutting him deeper and deeper by a mixture of things he couldn't change and by things that he didn't try hard enough to show he cared for. You need to understand your mother and I felt she's always been. I haven't been. We weren't, and I'm sorry. I don't have the words. Stolas finally said, his words failing him once more. Think I could help? A voice alerted them to its presence. Startled, Octavia looked around and found the owner of said voice, a red furred face and blue eyes stares back. Wiping her face, cheeks burned red a bit in an attempt to not look like a crybaby. Naru, what's up? What are you doing here? She said, trying to sound calm. Her state was more than visible. Snips asked if he could visit the park. I don't see what the big deal is though, the wolf shrugged, making Snips rise up and down, but you should cut your dad some slack, he said. Octavia slightly getting more worked up answers. You don't know what it's like, every day they fight, mom's always drinking, the screaming and dad running off with that asshole outside. I just want my family back to how it was, she said, tears beginning to fall again. The look of concern grew across his face as the wolf made his way over to the owl pair, lifting the young hound off his neck and setting him down. Sometimes things don't last forever because they can't for one reason or another, and you're right, I don't know what happens where you lay head down to sleep, but feeling trapped on your own life is no way to live. Both family members understanding his words in different ways. He moved closer to the two of them before placing his large hand on Stola's shoulder, eclipsing it, but I can see he's trying to spend time and make up for things, even though a bit misguided in his approach, and hopeful he listens more from now on, Naru said with pointed look at the older owl, who sheepishly nodded and looked apologetically at his daughter. Hopefully someday, whatever caused all of this, he'll be able to tell you in his own words. No one ever willingly wants to put their kid through this kind of crap if they can help it. He loves you and I know he doesn't want to mess up with you, the wolf said. Reaching over, he gently swiped a knuckle under each of her eyes before he gently pulled down the brim of her beanie, causing her to giggle and swipe at his hand before he let go. A rosy-cheeked face taking on a better mood as Naru smiled at the two of them, and Stolas took his hand with both of his and shook. Your seer brutality is surpassed only by your kindness and wisdom, my friend. Thank you, Stolas said, truly appreciative of the wolf's intervention. Nodding his head, Naru turned to look for Snips and leave, but found Snips headbutting another impassison and dropping him to the ground before he reared up and slapped his elbow. Hopping into the air, he drove it down. There was a crunching sound and a scream from the imp before he stood back up and looked at Naru, who was giving him a thumbs up and called him over. Laughing at their antics, Octavia felt a bit better before she scooched closer to her dad and had a quiet moment with him, at least for a little while. You're not gonna run off with him, are you? And leave me behind? Go away where I can't find you? Her old nightmares rearing their head again. Hugging her close, Stolas answered, what? No. No, never, I'd never do that. I think it's time to leave this place. You were right. You are too old for it anyway, he says, picking her up and carrying Octavia out of the funhouse as an imp grins maniacally in the space above the drop ceiling, looking down on Stolas. The imp drops down and flicks open a switchblade. Stolas immediately turns around, eyes glowing brightly. The imp immediately turns to stone and is knocked over by a pendulum. Outside, the park has been reduced to pandemonium as dusk falls. Millie attempts to put a bullet in Robo-Fizz as he rolls around wildly. The robot is suddenly caught by a draconic creature ridden by Moxie and crushed and chomped up by its jaws and swallowed whole. All the while, Stolas and Octavia make their way out of the park gate. So, what would you like to do now? He asks, still holding his child in his arms. Oh, can we go to Stylish Occult? They sell weird taxidermy there, Octavia says, sounding excited more so than she had all day. Slightly put off by the idea of the place, Stolas still agrees for his baby girl. Okay, drawing a chuckle at his response. Thanks, Dad. You're okay sometimes, she says, laying her head on his shoulder. Thank you, Via. Thank you. Stolas says, resting his cheek on her head. The sound of a motorcycle caught both of their attentions. Looking up and recognizing the garb of the person riding away with a smaller figure sitting in a sidecar, it wasn't too hard to guess who it was. Stolas hears a sigh from Octavia. He cranes his neck to see a gentle smile on her face, as well as some coloring on her cheeks once more, and looked back and forth between the ever-shrinking figure and his daughter before realization hit him. Ah, I see, well, I approve, via Stolas said, chuckling when his daughter finally registered what he said. Approve of what, she asked, generally confused. Well, I mean, if he ever got involved with politics, it would make it a far easier, Stolas said as he sat his daughter down next to him, but as far as suitable husbands go, I certainly approve of him, he says, nodding to himself. The gears slowly turned in her head as Octavia realized exactly what her father was saying before a blush burned across her face. Dad. She yelled, yanking her hat down, hiding her face much to his enjoyment. Well, I mean, there are far worse choices, dear, and even then, after what he demonstrated for all of hell. Stolas looked through the back window of the vehicle and down the road, where the wolf had long disappeared in that bloodbath of a fight. The man showed himself a walking testament to gluttony and war itself, a denizen of hell that grows stronger every time he feasts on an opponent. The thought of it was amazing in and of itself, but the thought of how terrifying it would be if he decided everything or, well, everyone is on the menu, a terrifying man to cross, yet he kept to himself, every meeting cordial, but oddly enough he was kind, that is, of course, unless you were to land on his bad side. As far as he could tell, he was a brutal man with a good moral compass, an honorable one, some might even say. Oh, I wonder what the grandchildren would look like. Oh ho ho, clapping his hands in delight at the thought, Stolas continued, tiny little fuzzy feathery balls of joy, wanting bedtime stories from mommy and daddy, and field trips with grandpapa. With it he was met with more cries of embarrassment and images of what could be growing in his daughter's mind. Dad. With Naru and Snips. The wolf guided the bike into one of the many parking spaces outside of a record label building, slouched back in the sidecar. Snip sits up and yawning looks around, confused. Though we were heading home, the little hound stands up and stretches. The wolf stood off the bike and began to head towards the door, with Snips quickly hurrying after him. I just had to come here and grab something real quick and we'll head home. Oh, and I'm thinking burger bombs, Naru said as grabbed Snips and tossed him up on his shoulder, ignoring the happy dance the pup was now doing. He walked past the front desk that was occupied by a succubus, pressing a button. She waved them through. As they moves along, she made no attempt to hide that she was staring Naru's ass, while the door slowly shut behind him. Fuck, I'd let him rail me right here, she said in a frustrated tone. Is that an open invitation? Cutting her eyes over with a flat look, seeing some burnout looking demon, she growled in annoyance before having a thought. She leaned forward over the desk, resting her palms on it, a sugary sweet smile on her face as she, you know what you can do, how's about you sit the fuck down. Snatching a pen off of her desk, she quickly made its new home for it in his crotch. Her laughter and the demon's scream of pain fell of deaf ears among the floor's inhabitants. Stepping into the elevator at the end of the lobby's hall, Naru pressed his floor of destination. The doors to the elevator closed as it carried them up the building. Naru folded his arms and rested his back against one of the nearest wall. Sighing, he closed his eyes, ignoring the elevator music. Ada, you think the receptionist lady PHFFT, you think she got her point across? Slowly opening his eyes, the wolf looked to the side at Snips, who wore a far too large grin on his face at the horrible pun. He even had the nerve to wiggle his eyebrows. I think that joke is the worst thing that's happened to me since I've been in hell, Naru said in a flat tone as he dragged his hand down his face, causing the young hound to laugh finally as the panel lit up and chimed, showing they reached their floor. As they made their way past the busybodies of imps and demons and a few hellhounds that stopped to try to say hello or tag along and brown nose or flirt with the big guy, especially the hound girl saying something about him being a good daddy, why the hell were they being so weird? Snips looked around, seeing people in conferences rooms and studios areas, until his eyes settled on a table full of joy some rooms over, two long tables full of different meat and cheeses to vegetables and different stuff in between on one end and the other, desserts and sweets and drinks. Wait, that's from human food, how they got shit from Earth. His stomach ended up speaking before he could catching Naru's attention. Yes, my friend, rare treat, Snip said as he rubbed his stomach, unaware that Naru was giving him concerned side eye and leaning his head away from him. Are you doing good there? The wolf asked, seeing the kid's eyes were locked on the table still before shifting his shoulder around, breaking Snip's trance-like stare. If you want some, go for it if you can. I doubt anybody will try to stop you, Naru said, nodding his head in the direction of the closed-off catering room. That's all the wolf had to say before Snips rolled off his shoulder and drooped to the floor, almost taking out another imp before he rushed over to the room. Naru continued on, still ignoring the suckups, as he entered into the biggest pair of office doors. Snips wasn't sure how long the meeting had gone in for, how long the meeting went on for, but the table definitely showed it, but hell if he didn't earn it. The doors were locked to the room and he got lucky with a vent, but it was so worth it. Most of the pastry sweets were gone and a chunk of a sugary glazed ham was still being munched on. Best day ever, the young hellhound said as he slumped back on a wide leather couch. Adding his poked out belly, he smiled as he slowly passed out on the couch. So table's all set up for her, right? A chipper soft voice asked as the sound of jingling keys caught his attention as his eyes snapped open and he almost hopped up off the couch but slipped on a piece of ham he had dropped, hitting the floor. He rolled under the table's curtain. Yes, we made sure everything on the list was taken care of. With that, both of the new entries into the room stopped as they observed the table. Snips continued to watch from underneath the table, trying to hide his breathing though. If I fucked up, whoa, I fucked up, damn, I love a food, trying to think if he could make it back to the vent without being seen. So I'm assuming this isn't how you left this, cause if it is then you're more fucked, the soft-voiced woman said, but the chipperness had gone from her voice. Miss Crystal, I promise this isn't what we left. After preparing everything, the second occupant in the room began to panic and try to explain the situation. All the while Snips could see someone tapping their foot while an annoyed sigh could be heard cutting off the other party. See, under normal circumstances this wouldn't be so bad, you would have time to fix or find to the cause of this, and then daddy tosses them out the window to spot paint the pavement, the woman said as she began walking into the room towards the table. From below the table, Snips watched her feet get closer, staying as quiet as he could. Oh, I fucked up, oh no, he thought, trying to figure out how the hell to get out of here without being caught. Now unfortunately Roxy is going to be here in 10 minutes and it'll take you at least an hour to replace even half of what's gone, and that's assuming our portal guy isn't booked elsewhere, the woman said as she moved around the table and sat down on the couch crossing her legs. It was then very unfortunate luck that when her foot came into contact with the tablecloth it snagged on her sneaker and she moved dejectedly kick it off. Unfortunately something or a little someone impeded that action. A pained yelp sounded through the room, causing all three of its occupants to be aware of each other. The seated woman slowly looked down at the tablecloth and reached forward to lift it. Why would you hide under the table? Portia's voice carried through the room, her tone carrying concern and a bit of annoyance as she held an ice pack to Snip's nose with his head tilted back. I panicked, the young hound said back slightly nasally, making Portia roll her eyes a bit in exasperation before whine escaped the pup when she shifted the pack, making her wince at the pitiful sound. He was a baby compared to her. Nobody wanted to see a pup with a boo-boo, let alone be the cause of it. Well, at least she didn't. Portia was 90% sure there were demons and sinners alike that would totally make baby back ribs out of any kind of baby. She moved the ice back, checking to see if his nose had stopped bleeding and was beginning to swell. And who told you to be in here anyway? The door was locked, an accusatory tone showing in her voice, knowing the caterer or her had to unlock the room for anyone to get in. Snips then slowly pointed up at the ceiling as Portia looked up, seeing the open vent cover. Are you serious? She asked in a humor-filled tone as she looked back down at the young hellhound who was sitting there with a sheepish grin on his face. Miss Crystal, should I call security or what? The imp assistant asked with a raised eyebrow as her employer's daughter shook her head. No, he's fine and I doubt his uncle would like that very much, so he'll consider it a personal favor, Portia said in a flippant tone and a bit of a saucy look that grew on her face, dismissing the entire situation, much to the secretary's confusion. She had seen the girl be more than happy to let anyone who was a minor inconvenience be hospitalized, yet this little fuzzy miscreant essentially stole from a very expensive catering table for an artist that was on her way to the building. Who exactly is his uncle? The imp asked as she couldn't help her curiosity, the pup looking like a normal everyday hellhound, unless his uncle was some kind of big expense muscle on payroll or another kind of well-connected hound. A dreamy sigh left Portia before she spoke, an absolute hunk of claws and muscle. A giggle followed, making the record label heiress seem like a gushing schoolgirl. Ah, so a boy toy, the imp said, thinking whatever hound that had Portia attention was some kind of eye candy of the month for the girl. Oh no, believe me, he wouldn't be the toy. Portia's tone instantly understood by her assistant as Imp's eyebrows rose at the clarification while Snip sat there confused, not understanding what she meant and just guessed she liked his uncle. So he's a big shot then, the assistant asked, sitting down next to Portia, happy to indulge in gossip for once as the hound turned to her with an elated look on her face as she started to gush. Girl, you remember a few months back when that pigeon psycho almost offed my friend Tavi and her dad at the Blood Dome, right? Night of the Blood Dome, flashback time. Generic MAKJ. Ed music blared over the stadium speakers, echoing out into the giant parking lot surrounding it. Vehicles parked as far as the eye can see, even parked on the road surrounding the area. Everyone who could pay and make it in came in droves. Scalpers at the doors to the stadium, having bought up chunks of the cheaper tickets and making a killing while saving a ticket or two for themselves for the night spectacles. One such scumbagget felt his sleeve be pulled on. Looking down, the imp sees a little helmet. What did you want, kid? I'm busy. Before the kid holds up a wad of cash. 2 tickets, Snip said with a big ass grin, and the scalper instantly focuses on the money, instantly thinking he was gonna run this kid's pockets. Quickly pulling 2 tickets, he swiped the cash from the kid, quickly counting over the hide amount of bills. Yeah, this oughta cover it, kid, nice doing Busem. Before he could finish his statement, large red fuzzy fingers wrapped around his head. The imp was slammed into the closest concrete wall, the vibrations from the fist wrapped around his head hitting the wall, rattling his brain, sending him to the Sandman's doorstep. See, now wasn't that easier than climbing up the building and breaking in, Naru said as he now held the unconscious imp by the back of his jacket as Snips rifled through his pockets before pulling an overstuffed wallet out and a few extra tickets. Clearing out the cash inside as well as getting his own money back, the young hound nodded enthusiastically. It was a good idea watching who went to which of these scalper jerks the most to, Snips said as he pocketed the money and zipped it shut. Wait, leave him at 20, that's enough to get gas or the bus, it's the least he deserves for all his hard work, the wolf said with sarcasm. Robbing him was more than good enough, no need to leave him stranded too. Snips looked through the bills in his pocket and pulled one when he found it stuffing into the imp's jacket as Naru tossed him into a nearby dumpster. Extending a hand down, letting Snips grab on, the little guy was hoisted onto his shoulder as he walked towards the main entrance as a family of imps walked in the opposite direction. I thought we had enough to get everyone in, there's always next one. A few years, if those scalping sons of bitches don't get to it first again, the father of the bunch said, irritated enough that veins were visible on his forehead and scalp as his wife pat his back. Remember your blood pressure, Mo, the woman's voice sounding like she worked in a diner with the smoker's voice she had. I know, Maggie IK, and the father doesn't finish his sentence as the sounds of heavy footsteps could be heard as the family turns around, the children immediately huddling behind their parents as the large hooded figure stands towering above them before a young hellhound hopped down from the hooded figure's shoulder, shoving 5 tickets into Mo's hand. The imp looked at them for a few seconds before he realizes what the kid just gave him. The oldest daughter of the bunch squealed in joy, rushing past her father, hugging Snips, picking the few inches taller boy off his feet as he gave off a startled ah. As the imp teen hugged him like a giant teddy bear. Kissing him on his fuzzy cheek and swinging him back and forth as his legs dangled as she squealed thank you over and over again before she set him back down before rushing back to her siblings, and they quickly joined in on her joy once they understood they would all get to go inside. Mo and Maggie were both skeptical, thinking the hellhound and the large hooded figure wanted something in return before they watched them both leave with the larger of the two chuckling and lifting the other onto his shoulder. Naru still laughing a bit as he gave a side eye to the dazed and confused boy. You alright there, little buddy, he asked, large amounts of humor evident in his tone as he felt Snips look back. He turned his head a bit to see the imp girl doing a wiggly wave at the pup, causing Snips' fuzzy face to heat up. What just happened? At the young hound's confused tone, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. A crush, my little friend, he said as he stuffed his hands in his pockets heading into the stadium. Oh fuck, the screeching of tires could be heard as something sounded like an impact across the bumper and a windshield breaking. What did he probability not do? Naru asked as he kept walking while Snips kept trying to look and see what happened. He didn't look both ways, the young hound more so asked, rather than stated. You're learning good, and why is it important to look? Naru asked while raising both his eyebrows. It's good to look both ways because you never know if a drugged up jackass is going to be trying to suck his own while hauling ass, so it's good to keep a rock in your pocket to remind a motherfucker to pay attention. Snip said verbatim what he remembered from the wolf. Good job, Naru praised, and he raised a fist upwards and Snips knocked his own smaller fist against it. As they made their ways through the door, Snips looked through the tickets, finding 2 really good seats that were a level up from ringside. Walking through the crowded hall, the smaller demons and sinners making way, thinking the large hooded figure was some overlord or a hell higher up of some kind. Excuse me sir, the contestants go along the hallway to the right, a cracking voice said, getting Naru's attention. He looked down at a pimple-faced imp, the spaced out look on the imp's face, letting Naru know the imp high as hell, checking tickets near a door that was guarded by security. Under his hood, the wolf raised an eyebrow and shrugged before heading past security, ignoring the eyes following him. The sinners and hellborns acting as security made room to let the large figure through with a young hound, and the little guy waved at them from his shoulder. Most of the hounds watched him walk down the hallway before one of them spoke. You guys felt that shit too, right? The scared older looking hellhound asked, with the others nodding, muttering amongst themselves about whoever or whatever the hell that just walked by them. That put them all on edge. He's an overlord, gotta be. One of the other ones spoke up. An overlord walking around with an adolescent fuzzball. I doubt it, and look at his jacket, it looks like it fraud a fucking cactus, and lost overlords don't dress like shit. An imp spoke up before he added with squinted eyes, unless he's one of those weird ones. I doubted a feminine voice could be heard within the group of hounds. You saw him, the pup was clean, a healthy looking coat, no weird smells, and he looked happy like a kid going to an amusement park for the first time. The only she-hound of the security group spoke up, her unfolded her arms. Visually sporting a good amount of muscle, showing she took the team security work seriously. The fuzzy woman stopped, leaning against the wall near the door, watching as Naru kept walking. The look in her eye tell for a different reason that she kept watching. The big guy didn't smell like a sinner, he smells like some kind of him. I guess some kin to noodles and burnt cinnamon and blood, but can't smell a woman's scent, and no dude scent on him, either for that matter, she said with a smirk, cutting her eyes over to one particular hellhound of the group, getting a flat look and a dry ha-ha from the hound she was looking at before her eyes traveled back to the wolf. But that other smell rolling off him is fucking yes, he wonder if the kid needs a stepmommy, she said, watching as Naru disappeared around the corner as her tail wagged a bit, making everyone else look at her with surprised looks. Wait, I though you only like chicks, one of the other hellhound said as he looked over at her. Nah, I'm just really picky with dudes, and most gals are real squishy when you know where to touch, so it's fun, she said, shrugging a bit before adding, and Mr. Big Tall and Dilfy is giving off breaker of bitches vibes, she said with a shiver. Everyone else quickly came to a realization, oh so that's her type, the break every bone in your body kind by the time he's finished type. A few of them slightly glad that their flirting didn't pay off, realizing how in danger their pelvises might have actually been in if that's the kinda guy that actually she wanted backshots from. They all collectively moved back a bit from her when they heard a low growl bubbling in her chest as some of the other group groaned in annoyance. Dude, one of you grab a damn fan, man. I'm not trying to be standing here smelling her be fucking turned the next few hours, oh fuck off ass muncher. Staff and crew moved around checking over equipment and conducting sound checks to ensure that all instruments and microphones are working properly and that the sound levels are balanced, as well as other contestants, moving about, even some occupied VIP sections towards the back of the area with windows. Demons and sinners of all kinds could be seen throughout the area, lots of them keeping distance from each other and some that looked to be ready to tear each other's throats out. Where is Jay, he was supposed to hear like 20 minutes ago, a voice caught Naru's attention as one of his hood-covered ears twitched towards them before turned his head a bit and looking over, seeing an imp and two succubus. Naruto raised an eyebrow. He said he was going for a smoke or something. They both spoke at the same time. Hold on, wait a second, he looked back and forth between the two of them. Beam twins, apparently one in red the other in blue, but hell if everything between them was a mirror image, oh for fuck's sake, and he's not picking up for the love of Ember. Judy, check, can you check his Instagram, the imp asked and he rubbed his face. The twins pulled their phones scrolling through until they find Jay's page. Well, he posted like 20 minutes ago, Ember said with a shrug, while Judy tapped the most recent video. Well, he was outside, he got some jackass being thrown into a dumpster on camera. At that, Naruto raised an eyebrow before he hears the sound of screeching tires and a body thumping as realization set anew, that's what that was, he says in a low flat tone with raised eyebrows. Well, I guess him and the cigarette went out at the same time, Dex, the twin said in unison, and the other member of the band said as Dex flipped his shit for a bit. Whipping a cheap beer bottle against the wall as he grabs his horns, cursing over and over again before finally sitting on the ground. Fuck, a defeated sigh left him. Snips hopped from his sitting perch. Hey, I know them, I've seen them before, their band is really good there, they play in a couple of the warehouses I break into sometimes, the pup said, rushing over to the group. You guys are the greedy young, right, the pup says, catching the band member's attention. The imp barely looks up. Yep, that's us kid, defeat clear in his tone, his head still down, while the twins gained a look of recognition on their faces. One kept her flat look while the other at least smirked. Well, if it ain't the little fuzzy food vacuum, how you been, little dude, been stealing any good shit lately? Ember reached over, patting the pup on the head as he enthusiastically nodded. Yup, and the mini fridge you guys gave me really helped, Snip said, the swishing of his tail letting them know he appreciated it more than he let on. Wait, where's the other guy? Snips asked as he looked around for the other band member with narrowed eyes. Jay seems to have relocated his work hours into the grill of a SUV, so we might be out of a front man, Judy said with an annoyed huff, closing her phone. Well, we're screwed, she said, hopping up on a nearby crate. Wait, what? But why? You guys can sing, can't you? And Captain Jackass wasn't that good, so what, you're down? One guy, Snip said, his dislike for Jay obvious, and it was understandable. He did flick cigarette butts at him, and one did actually manage to burn him. Hit as much as Jay was an asset, we needed him for pretty much 80% of our songs. I don't sing, can help with the growls, but beyond that I'm all guitar, Dex said, rubbing his hand down his face before pointing at the twins. Ember can't sing and she's on bass, but Judy is on drums, so we're legit missing a voice to the mix. That motherfucker just had to wander off, Dex growled out as he kicked another bottle front his seated position. Snips looked at the twins as they both nod, Ember sporting a more melancholic look compared to Judy's. So what happens now? Snips asked, a whine punctuating his words and a flattening of his ears. We kick rocks, kid, Judy said with a sigh, and she reached over, petting the pup between the ears, and there's no reason for you to get sad fuzz-face dreams and chances die all the time. It was our turn for stuff to go wrong, her monotone voice offering little comfort, but the scratches however immaculate as the pup tilted towards her more, almost falling over, drawing a giggle from both girls as Ember poked the pup in the shoulder, pushing him a bit to get his other paw back on the floor. Shit like this happens sometimes, we just gotta hope to find someone else that can sing so we can get the band rolling again, both of which we don't have time for in the next 30 minutes, Dex said as he stood up a few taller than the twins. Snip seemed to snap out of his near catatonic state, shaking his head a bit as his ears flopped around a bit, with one standing and the other half curled over before blinking a few times before his eyes widened. Wait, I have an idea, he said before he rushed off, sprinting off. The band watched as the pup jumped toward a larger figure leaning against a wall, a way larger figure. What the fuck? Both of the twins spoke as a large hand snagged the back of the pup's jacket and the giant sat him on his shoulder. Who the hell is that guy? Dex asked, not remembering the towering figure as they watched Snips talk to him. Can you sing? The question catching Naru off guard. I'm not sure, his tone sounding more like a question than an answer. Can you try at least? You're the coolest guy I know, come on please. The hopeful tone from the pup making his eye twitch as he kept his focus forward, trying not to look at the boy, already feeling the puppy eyes aimed at the side of his head and slowly entering his field of view. Giving out a sigh of resignation, his ears flattened a bit under his hood. I don't even know what to sing, he slightly grumbled before a phone was held up in his line of sight. Where did you get that? Naru asked as the pup with a narrowed questioning look found it a quick reply and tiny almost innocent looking smile on Snips' face told Naru otherwise before Snips pulled a plastic bag from his pocket containing a red finger. Okay, even more questions. Do I even wanna know? The red wolf questioned in a flat tone. He tried to rob me, the statement getting a raised eyebrow from the wolf. And this happened when and where? Because I don't remember you having a phone, his words making Snips cringe. Well, I felt like walking a bit and I ended up in Cannibal Town. Instantly Snips was lifted by the scruff, looking the older wolf in the eye. When did you manage to go to Cannibal Town? His tone making the pup's ears fold and his tail curl under his legs. You were asleep, the sentence drawing a sighing growl from Naru as he set the pup down. The more Naru came to know if the rings of hell, the more he disliked about quite a few things. That place was one of them. You do not do that again. There are sinners and demons alike that would eat you. Wear your coat as a scarf. Do not go there without me again. Do you understand? His words and tone leaving no room for disagreement from the pup, who looked thoroughly chastised, letting out a quiet whine. I'm sorry. But the huff. Naru sat down crossing his legs as he placed a hand on Snips' head. I don't want to see you get hurt, at least with me around. Ill worry less and I rather not rip apart cannibal looking for you. Plus I'm pretty sure they taste weird like bad meat wrapped in stank bud. The lighter tone at the end drawing a snort of laughter from the pup as Naru gently rocked his head back and forth a bit, drawing more laughter from Snips as the boy grabbed onto the wolf's hand to steady himself before the hand was lifted from his head. The band members watched and gave a sigh of relief seeing things calm down, as well as the pup dangling from the clawed fuzzy hand hanging on and giggling before letting himself drop a few inches back to the floor, and he sat down on the larger figure's knee mimicking the way he sat as they began going through the phone together. Oh, thank fuck. Dex was the only one to voice his relief, thankful the kid didn't end up with a violent reaction, thinking the big guy was some kind of overlord. Thankfully it was just some kind of parental scolding. The twins were oddly quiet though. Looking over at them, Judy had a slightly frowny pout look on her face, while Ember had a lip tremble and visible tears brewing before the more stoic twin looked at her sister. You wanna call dad too? Judy's words more of a matter-of-fact statement than a question as her blue-themed twin could only nod and sniffle a bit. Bex watched the two of them walk off to call their dad as he rolled his eyes a bit before he looked around a bit inside, pulling out his phone, dialing up his parents. Ah fuck it, it was a good enough time to. Back with Naru and Snips, the boy scrolled through the songs trying to find a good one. So these are songs from hell and the human world. How the does that work? Naru asked as he listened to the snippets of songs as the pup skipped through trying to find a good song. You can find lots of music with Bloodwire, the pup said with a shrug. Wait, isn't there viruses on that? Oh yeah, a bunch. But it isn't my phone, was Snips' to the smile reply, making the wolf snort a bit. Oh, this one. The pup nearly shoved the phone in Naru's face, making him grunt and lean back a bit as the music played in weird winging up sound before the sound of drums and guitar set in beefer. A voice finally popped up. Ooh, oh, yeah, I've heard you yell and roar a bunch. You can totally do this one, Snip said excitedly. I can give it a shot, just let me listen a few more times, the wolf said confidently, getting a wooting howl from the pup. Minutes later. I love you guys too, talk later alright, Dex said as he hung up the phone with his folks before making his way over to the twins. Love you too, Dad. Pop overhearing their farewells to their dad. Guess we all needed a home call, huh? Dex laughed a bit as it seemed the stinging failure of tonight's events was lessened for all of them. The twins nodded before Judy spoke. It was nice talking to Dad, it's been a few since we called him. It was nice. Ember smiled a bit. We need to pop up and surprise him one day. Bro-yahh. A deep rumbling growl that morphed into words ripped through the area as silence descended from the staff halting in their tracks to contestants and VIPs in their sections and booths. Even the security from the front the contestants' hallway had come running, thinking a fight had broken out, only to stop when they saw everyone focused on a pair sitting towards one of the back walls. The music from the phone held in a young hellhound that was looking at the larger figure in wonder before the audio was smothered by the hooded figure as his head snapped up as the air was filled with that wicked growl once more as his bald fist slammed against a nearby dumpster, keeping in time with a beat in the music. The three band members stood there amazed as a whole new door in their lives just opened up. I did my time and I want out. So effusive, fade, it doesn't cut. The soul is not so vibrant. The reckoning, the sickening. Packaging subversion. Pseudo-sacrosanct perversion. Go drill your deserts, go dig your graves. Then fill your mouth with all the money you will save. Sinking in, getting smaller again. I'm done, it has begun, I'm not the only one. The young hellhound hair whipped back and forth headbanging as the larger figure's voice ripped through the area while he sung. Some had managed to get a closer look at him as his hood drew back enough to reveal a red furred chin and a sharp bottom row of pearly white fangs. Wait, oh my Beelzebub, I think I know who that is. The she-hound from earlier quickly took out her phone, going through her gallery, the icon showing the silhouette of a fuzzy standing figure with smoke rising off of him before she tapped on it and opened a video that was there. Oh yeah, I saw that on the news. The video played, showing the combined footage from the store to the alley. Way, those are fucking bullet holes, the security imp said as he looked up from the phone to the still singing Wilf. And the rain will kill us all. Throw ourselves against the wall. But no one else can see. The preservation of the martyr in me. I think I just started ovulating. The she-hound said, her eyes locked on Naru as his voice changed tune to a smoother one and younger hound sitting with him threw his little fists up in the air. Fuck yeah. Blood dome. Are you ready for blood, you filthy degenerates? The announcer's voice boomed over the stadium speakers, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. What I can't hear. The announcer's question, getting people out of their seats shouting at the top of their lungs. Now that's more like it, where 3 fights in and many more to go. So exciting, it's like I am edging over here. The crude joke was met with laughter from most of the stadium, while others groaned in annoyance, wanting the next fight to get started. Next on the roster, what the fuck thought those guys not being here was a rule. Mao. Well, first up Nathaniel Gosha with at most if the crowd died down the fuck that guy. A single audience member of managed to scream out loud enough before more joined in. Depending on who you were living in pride, you either worked for or adamantly fucking hated whoever was able to put a boot on your neck, and with the way this prick just walked into the fight zone, yeah, you could definitely tell he was a silver spoon head. Well damn, definitely not gonna be a fan favorite, don't blame them either. The last part of the announcer's words were muttered a bit before he continued. Our next contestant, well I guess this guy is operating under an alias, but give it up for the Scarlet Claw. The cheering and hooping and hollering came back. As long as it wasn't that feathery asshole, fuck it, they'll cheer for anybody as long as there was blood. Hellborn and Sinner alike watched the other contestant entrance before a broad-shouldered figure came through, hands in his pockets, nonchalant as all could be. He stopped 30 or so yards away from the Gosha, as silent as under normal circumstances. It might have been some playful banter, a little bit of shit talking, but right now here was a real special occasion because that jackass across the way chose to mouth off at particularly the wrong time within earshot. His words still stoking the flames of agitation building up in the wolf. Of course, one of those filthy little mongrels would be in here. A part of all that noise, dirty little thing needs to be outside. Now well, Snips didn't hear him, his celebrations of this big friend's newly discovered talent more than distracting him as he interacted with the rest of the members of Bloody Young. Naru, unfortunately for him, had heard every last syllable. Crystal fucking knew enough about the owl-faced douchebag and his lineage, how prideful and hoity-toity they all seem to be. The fake airs the lot seem wear on a constant basis, like someone dumped a trash can full of glitter on top of a fucking skull-sized turd. So he decided his best course of action: make this motherfucker's existence feel utterly pointless. These owl bastards pride themselves on their magic, their well-cultivated spells and scriptures, so why not make it all feel utterly fucking useless before the little bird? Should it be a little overboard? Possibly. Naru knew he wasn't exactly a vengeful kind of person, and yet he couldn't help with the simmering rage. Snips was a kid minding his own business and just being a downright helpful little fella. If the relief of Dex, Judy and Ember had shown was anything to go off of, he was a good kid, his little buddy his sidekick, and Naru could tell Snips had taken to him like a big what would any good big brother do in any situation where he caught somebody talking shit about his little brother, you might ask. Naru tilted his head to one side, audible clicks and pops could be heard before he tilted it to the other side, producing more of the same before we focused on the soon-to-be carcass standing across from him. You curb stomp a motherfucker. Naru let out a breath, the sound somewhere between a hissing crocodile and a low rumbling lion, as hot black sooty smoke exited from underneath the hood. Those in attendance and watching taking it as some kind of taunt or some kind of power peacocking, but to those watching that knew him, it was a floodlight, a brightly painted neon sign spelling out warning covered in blood. Has been hotel. Oh, he is fucking pissed, Angel Dust said as he launched on one of the couches while he munched on some popcorn. The rest of the hotel's inhabitants seemingly all in agreement with him, a very rare occasion honestly. Hey, I wonder what's got Wolfie so worked up, Baggy said with raised eyebrows. Seeing the normally chill guy getting worked up, she could see smoke starting to come off his jacket. The last time he was this mad was when Alistair scared Snips, Charlie said, concerned, not liking the image of her friend so thoroughly angry, and he definitely wasn't the type to misplace or point that anger in the wrong direction. Remember that he could have easily barreled over her girlfriend to get to the hotel's residential overlord almost a month or so back. I wonder if the Goshen did something to his fuzzy little charge, a voice sounding like it came out of an old time radio spoke up as Alistair walked into the room, his statement getting some worry out of a few occupants in the room focused back on the TV, seeing their candid friend, his twitching muscles visible underneath the jacket as a steady churn of smoke came up from up underneath the hood, the suggestion definitely seeming possible. Ah, that's guy gonna die real damn bad. Oddly enough, for the second time tonight everyone in attendance seemed to agree with Angel Dust. Weird. Blood Dome. Alright contestants, are you ready? Of course, gutter trash is no issue. The demon owl spoke in pure arrogant confidence as he ready to spell. Yeah, of course you are. And what, Abo? Ring the fucking bell. The voice, laced with a vicious roar, ripped through the stadium from the smoking figure cutting the announcer. Oh fuck, damn, alright, he's ready to go. The fuck, man, the announcer guy actually sounded like his feelings was hurt before click was sound and music started, because why not have a soundtrack to your bloodshed? Move Your Body song by Sevak and Ambus. Kyle. The owl whipped his hands forward, sending an avalanche of spear-like ice towards the other combatant, who simply walked towards him as the churning blender of spiked rolled over him and solidified like an icy tomb. Nathaniel smirked in his superiority. Oh the fuck, it's over already. What a letdown, folks. Crack. Everyone watched the icy structure began growing spiderweb cracks before it splintered from the inside. It held for a few more moments before exploding outwards as the other combatant continued to walk forward, smoke and steam rising off of him. Oh, that didn't do shit, folks, fight still on. Nathaniel watched the slowly approaching figure before switching up his approach, chanting some kind of spell as a red glow surrounded his hands and held them out towards Naru as the same red glow surrounded him, seemingly slowing, making him hunch over as it seemed like the force was trying to crush his body. The audience could see Naru's shoulders slowly being pressed inwards towards each other like someone in a closing trash compactor until it all seemed to halt. He slowly righted himself, his body opening back up, standing back up to his full stature, visibly flexing against the force as he movements resumed now faster than before. Nathaniel started backing away, forming another spell, palms faced towards each other as something the size of a marble began to materialize, growing size and intensity, the light from it becoming alarmingly bright. Alright, if you feel so content taking punishment, I'll oblige, Nathaniel said before somebody snapping his hands forward and how basketball-size pure burning plasma shot towards his opponent, and for the first time during the fight a hand from the other combatant was raised as the ball slammed into it. Long thick fingers clenched around the burning sphere until it began to become unstable, swelling for a moment in the spots free of the hand clutching it as the solar spell finally exploded. Smoke bellowed upwards, obscuring the area as the seconds rolled by, the heavy cloud dissipated and visibility returned, a cone-shaped trench along the ground and a simmering stone around the area was the first visible change. As for the combatants, Nathaniel had backed away a bit further from where he once was as his beak visibly grinded against itself in anger as the other contestants stood there no longer concealed by the smoke, a large furred hand clenched into a fist, smoke and residual heat still coming off of it before the figure raised a single finger tilting his hand back and forth. The message of the gesture was loud and clear. Not. Beelzebub Mansion. Bro, the fuck is this guy made of? A hellhound asked his one-eyed friend sitting on the couch over the loud music going through the whole building that was bustling with hellhounds. Vortex shrugged. Hell if I know, man, the fact he's tanking shit from a Gosha is wild, he said, genuinely surprised somebody was just willingly letting themselves get hit by all this shit. Then again, maybe it was some kind of stunt match. Gosha weren't allowed to participate in this kind of shit unless they got permission from Lucifer himself, if not then that asshole was going to be dead afterwards anyway, most likely. Big boy flexed out of a crush spell. Damn, a female hellhound said sitting on the floor, leaning against the front part of the couch's armrest. Fuck man, this dude is solid, whatever the hell his workout routine is. I need that shit. Vortex's friend spoke again as all the hellhounds sitting around watching, taking a bit of a quick break from the more wild shit happening, watched on as well. Stacy, does that jacket look really familiar? A hellhound with a Valley Girl accent said, looking at her friend who nodded. I think I saw it in like a fashion catalog, it's so familiar. An explosion sounded through the TV, momentarily peaking out the microphones in the stadium, catching everyone's attention at the party. Well damn, Beelzebub's voice above their heads, catching everyone else off guard as she watched the TV now while sitting on the chandelier. Blood Dome. So when are you actually gonna hit me with something good? Or I thought your kind was strong, or is it all just inflated egos? The statement making the owl demon squawk in rage as Naru with both arms held out wide as he continued his approach across the ring of the Coliseum. Their match had started 5 minutes ago and he hadn't been able to inflict a scratch on this biker wannabe jackass. He knew for a fact these will be absolutely devastating to an overlord, so what that fuck was this damn thing? The plethora of his magics had been used in this lumbering fucking shit stack, had walked all of it off, feathers ruffled and stuck out in simmering agitation. He was of the Ars Gotia, and this fucking nobody had made a mockery of him in less than 10 minutes. He had studied honing his craft for as long as he could remember, perfected his magic, even going as far as learning of the scripture magics of Baal. This fucking nobody's flesh should be on one side of the ring and his bones on the other. You going to keep being angry over there, or are you actually going to fucking try sometime this week? Cause if I'm going to be bored, you might as well conjure me up some food or something. Then again, I can smell how angry you are from here. Smells a little bit like chicken, the hooded leather jacket clad contestant said with a shrug, but even at this distance the owl demon could see a toothy grin beneath the hood. You pointless plebeian magic began to gather once more around his hands, the force of it whipping up dust and stones. How dare you speak to your fucking betters, you are nothing, you hear me, nothing. The owl demon slammed his hands together, the magics in each hand colliding, creating a hole in reality itself, before a great pull could be felt as dust, stones and debris. The pull seemed to be grow by the second, with even some of the smaller spectators suddenly having to grab onto the railings or the seats in front of them, as the pull became strong enough for them to start feeling it in the stands, some of the imps and smaller demons, losing their footing on the steps from the beckoning force. Ooh, fancy trick. So when you gonna pull out the rabbit, or are you going to pull it out of your ass? Even now the hooded bastard insulted him with a blasé attitude, but that's fine, he was going to enjoy watching him die and leave his carcass to float amongst the dead open space and stars. You've run your mouth long enough, and I will have my retribution. We all demon took off across the Colosseum with alarming speed, flying in and closing the distance, pumping more power into the vortex as he drew closer before his opponent moved, and it was then the owl demon suddenly realized folly of his plan. Well, yes, the spell was incredibly powerful, it could wipe out swaths of those in its path, it could only be pointed in one direction. His hands now forced upwards, reminder daddy, loose debris circling around it, it's almost looking like a tornado of trash, as well as the rafters above beginning to shake, as well as the cameras. Nathaniel felt the bones of his forearms begin to creak at the accumulating force being exerted on them. A gleaming blue eye and a vicious grin greeted him under the hood as he got a true look at the red fur snout underneath. You filthy fucking mong. Suddenly dual sets of snapping crunches can be heard before his forearms bent at an unnatural angle, and he was eyewitness to the business end of his own spell. For those in the audience, in those quick few seconds his head and shoulders were already inside of the portal before a vicious swipe across his belly from black talon-like claws bisected his midsection, with each finger carving its own path, forming uneven body chunks, sucking his upper body and a few chinks into the spell. The large figure in the leather jacket took a few steps back as the magic began to warp and become magically induced event horizon, giving off gusts and pulls. In its final moments, the spell warped and itself eating its own existence, snapping shut, leaving a lower body of the owl demon still standing for a few seconds. His blood seeped out for it toppled and fell to the ground below, occasional twitches accompanying the slowly growing puddle of blood. Well then, I guess that's done with that. Naru clapped his hands together, almost as if he was cleaning them before he turned and began walking back the contestants' waiting area. Pompous jackass. With that the crowd whipped up into a frenzy, the sight of one of those rich shitbags biting the dust incredibly satisfying for damn near the entirety of the audience, as they cheered, while a few others who absolutely understood the gravity of what just happened watched in shock. This Scarlet Claw had used no magic, no spells, no angelic weapons or otherwise. True, there were those with the power to achieve such things, but none that matter knew who the hell just walked out of that ring. Stadium tunnel. That was so cool. A fuzzy rocket slammed into Naru's chest, clinging onto him as he laughed. The wolf, still laughing, grabbed the back of Snips' jacket, lifting him. The boy had an excited look on his face as his tail switched back and forth, nearly making him pendulum while held aloft. You were all like grrr. And he was all like fireball. And you were all like nah fuck you, the boy animatedly said while making punching, kicking and flexing gestures, making the other band members in the hallway laugh as they walked back to the contestant area, seemingly ignoring whatever stares that they were getting, or more so the wary ones focused on the largest of the group. You were practicing during the fight, right? Naru asked as he set the boy down and watched as some of his excitement died down before he answered. I think I got it, I think, the boy said nervously. Well, we got an hour or so to practice, so we'll make sure you got it down, Kid Deck said as they all watched the stadium's crew moving equipment to where the fights were. Luckily they weren't a first band playing tonight, nobody wants to be the band where all the technical shit goes wrong. The hour had come and passed by 10 or so minutes as longtime friends and new band members walked out of the contestant tunnel to the stage that had been set up for the halftime music entertainment, followed up by the seemingly new additions to their group. So you guys good, you feeling alright? You nervous? I feel like I'm going to shit my pants. This is great, no pressure, Deck said, his speech a little more faster and jittery than normal, making Judy and Ember look at him before the blue twin spoke up. Dude, we told you to shit before you had to come out here. Before Judy nudged her sister with her elbow. Unless you're talking about fear of poop, that's your own fault too. Dex, we played in a bunch of warehouses in front of a bunch of people, just pretend we're back there, she said with a shrug. Yeah, just back in the warehouse, just with a lot of cameras where everyone in hell can't see us at Dex's slightly spaced out tone. Both the twins turn and look at him, seeing him kind of freeze up before they both share a look, before they each raised a hand slapping him on opposite sides of the head. "Motherfucker, are I right?" Dex said, rubbing his head of it before he walked out into the Coliseum fight rounds and up the setup stage steps, followed by everyone else. The succubus twins initially getting most of the curious attention because, well, one pretty girl is already awesome too, well, that's even better, but some clapping and shouting in recognition from a few in the crowd that had seen the band play a few times before eyes went to the last large figure that came walking out, oddly enough with a young hellhound sitting on his shoulder. Ignoring the steps, Naru hopped up onto the stage, falling behind the rest of the band as they each went to their own separate instruments, checking them over, testing the sounds in their earpieces before give me a thumbs up to the audio crew as their equipment went live over the speakers and for the audiences at home, and the first thing to come through the mic was the sound of Snips laughing as he slid down Naru's arm to stand on stage. "That's a lot of people." Snips' voice came through the mic as he and Naru moved closer to the mic, the pup's ears folding slightly seeing so many people. The sound of fabric being moved came through the speakers as the wolf pulled off the long leather jacket and it was tossed elsewhere on stage, and nearly every hellhound in the stadium focused on the long bushy red tail with various reactions, some more vocal than others having hype reactions, same with the viewers at home. Beelzebub's mansion. The house was absolutely packed with hounds and a few demon types, a party and a pay-per-slay event in full swing for free. You'd be a moron not to come. Various mixtures of different levels of drunk partygoers moved throughout the mansion, well, except for some of the spots they weren't allowed in. She loved her hounds, but they knew better than to risk a full-fledged ass whooping, and she definitely had done so in the past. These vibes are off the damn chart, love it," Beelzebub said as she schmossed around every now and then, tossing out a few drinks, even snapping a valve off a keg or two, showering partygoers with booze, much to their drunken delight. "Hey, the next act is coming up," one of the party hounds near the TV rolled out as the DJ lowered the music. The Sin took flight over to the giant TV before zipping down to a couch that seemed to have enough room for two, currently half being occupied. Floating down, she plopped herself onto the couch next to her boyfriend, snuggling into his side. "Right on time, babe," her boyfriend said with a laugh. "Tex incoming, bro." A beer bottle sailed through the air as Tex looked back, catching it with his free hand after B decided to wrap his other one around her. "Appreciate you," Tex laughed, biting the cap off and spitting it onto the table. Nice mouth." B's voice entered into the ear closest to her. He knew that tone, he knew very damn well. "We still got hours left in this party, down girl," he said, laughing a bit before she playfully nipped at his shoulder. "Never," she said with an impish grin, looking ready to hop into his lap. "That's a lot of people." The sound of a child's voice cut through the atmosphere of the party, making B's head whip around, thinking that someone had brought a kid with them or possibly had followed their parent to the party, and it happened before she even had added a wing to the mansion in case it happened again, so at least the kid had somewhere safe to hang out at until the party was over. She even got the last few rides home with their super duper drunk. She felt Vortex's hand on top of her head. Tex loved the enthusiasm, now's not the "oh" that's why he put his hand on top of her head, as in she was made to look back at the screen. She saw a young hellhound on stage. "Oh da baby," she couldn't help but gush. Baby hellhounds were the cutest. Well, he wasn't a little baby, but he was to her, so that's what counted, and he looked almost the same breed as Vortex, except for the tufts of white fur on him, showing that he was most likely of mixed parentage, so it was automatic more cuteness points on the unique and very healthy looking coat. The band that was setting up moved to their respective spots and wait. The big guy was in a band the thought shared by numerous amounts of perfume and in the stadium as well. Once the leather jacket came off and a long red bushy tail came into view, the party got quieter. "No fucking way," someone in the back said before a few more started muttering before everyone went silent. Once the hoodie came off as well, tossed next to the leather jacket. "Oh fuck, it is him," one of the girls in the back yelled before damn near the entire mansion full of people came down to get a closer look at the TV. "Motherfucker, the guy is a unit." Numerous hellhounds, all sharing the same sentiment. The shiny blood-red coat sat on top of more than visible muscle and definition. Under the black ribbed tank top shirt he wore a thick tuft of fur, going from his shoulders up the sides and back of his neck, leading along his jawline up to his ears and scalp. Every now and then, his ears would flick downwards before settling back up in a standing position. "Oh, big fella was a little nervous about being on stage," B thought to herself, "big a bit bashful, and brutal, a definitely winning combo. Girl, he's so fucking fine in them jeans." And nearby hellhound gushed to her friend like, "Fuck hello Mr. Kielbasa," the valley pooch spoke up again. Once those particular words were said, B's eyes traveled directly to Mr. Big Red and Fuzzy's crotch, and oh shit, that is a new outly and damn boy. Most of the party goers figuring something, with a few of the girls instantly voicing the fun discovery after watching the wolf move around for a bit. "It's soft, that's fucking soft." There were going to be quite a few screenshots and pictures on the internet tomorrow. A timid whine could suddenly be heard as everyone focused back on the pup, ears folded almost flat against his head, tail curled tightly around his leg, a fist clenched onto Naru's pant leg. They watched little guy move closer to the towering figure looking up at him. "I don't think I can," his muffled voice making almost everyone in the room's heart bleed for the little fella. The Buxo residence. Luna sat in her room watching the pirated stream of the fight. So far have been spectacular, but with Naru, she had damn near dropped her phone in shock when she realized one of the competitors who was absolutely kicking ass tonight was this new ass urban legend. Sure, there are some videos and whatnot from the security camera footage and a few sightings, but she thought it was some hopped up sinner or some kind of weird prank, some kind of shits and giggles on the hellhounds. There had never been an actual wolf. Sure, there was a bunch that looked like one, like herself, and some even giving themselves wolf as a last name or a theme, but for there to possibly be a genuine article and a pop-up in her lifetime was actually pretty fucking tits. She had never seen someone so indifferent, well damn near seemed bored taking out a fucking Ars Gosha barehanded. She could have swore those types weren't allowed into those fights, but oh well, not her problem, not her monkey, not her circus, and she continued to focus on the screen once more when the wolf and hellhound showed up on stage as her eyes widened and she hit screen record on her phone capturing the wolf before she momentarily pauses the video, carefully rewinding it as she looks at it. Closer and her eyebrows raise. "There's no fucking way that would fit, would it?" she quietly asked herself, seeing how small the microphone looked in his hand, as well as his height towards the two succubuses and imp looking to be about the same height as her dad. She watched the imp on guitar move closer to the singing duo and the height of the mic stand and others that had used it that night, so she thought she had a pretty good idea how long his legs were before she rolled over on her bed, opening her nightstand, taking out her favorite toy, holding it up to her forearm before her eyes slowly widened. "It would be worth it would be so fucking worth it," she said before she became preoccupied focusing on the stream with some extracurricular activity mixed in before her fun time was cut short, finally hearing the pup on stage looking so nervous. "The HC damn it kid," she huffed in annoyance, sitting back up feeling bad seeing the little guy like that little lady boner killer. Has been hotel. "They're gonna sing Eeyahaha." Charlie practically bounced in her seat next to Vaggie, making her girlfriend give out a sigh of exasperation and amusement. All of the hotel's inhabitants sat in front of the TV. Well, Charlie herself wasn't exactly a fan of seeing demons and sinners bite the dust. It at least seemed the majority of the ones you had tonight were well complete assholes, so it made it just a little bit less bad, but she mainly always watched or just tuned in for when the musical acts would pop up. "Ah, so the Ferd Smokestack is an efficient killer as well as a vocal enthusiast. This I have to see," Alistair said as he took a seat on the arm of the couch, folding one leg over his knee. "Fuck the singing, I can think of way more fun shit General Bulge could be doing right now." The crude comment from Angel Dust making almost everyone in the room either look at him in disgust or cringe before a pillow met his face at high speed. The fuck, recoiling and pushing the pillow away from his face as the resident pseudo-cyclops got up from her seat stalking towards him as she began cursing him out in Spanish, only for Snips' voice from the TV caught everyone's attention. "I don't think I can." The timid tone immediately made Charlie's heart ache. "Oh no," her words muffled behind her hands, watching her little fuzzy friend. "Ah, the bane of any artist, stage fright." The radio demon's voice carrying a hint of sympathy somewhere in there. Abracachorito. Vaggie set her focus back on the TV. During Snips and Naru's time staying at the hotel and assisting with some renovations, she actually grew to be quite fond of the two of them, between Snips naturally being so playful and happy, almost being a little mascot for the hotel, and Wolfie being a buffer for Angel Dust and Alistair's fuckery, as well as being a consistent and courteous helping hand. She gained a lot of respect and care for the duo. Poor good boy Nifty's normally manically cheerful tone sounding glum as a tear to be seen welling up in her eye. "The kid will pull through, he's got the big guy with him." Gruff voice from behind the bar spoke up as Husk let his presence be known as he polished a glass mug. Another occupant of the hotel, well, not so much a completely willing one, said, having actually gotten chummy with the pair, especially after it seemed both of them were pretty good at cards. Well, the bigger one having an ass load of luck for some reason, no powers or anything involved with his wins. He can respect a man that was a natural at cards. He could also respect how the little shit seemed to have a hell of a sleight of hand, only catching the kid cheating at cards twice. Little bugger was going to be a damn card shark one day. They watched as the Hell Wolf pulled the mic from the stand and sat down at the edge of the stage, his leg dangling from it from the knee down. "Focus on me, all right," the wolf's voice carried through a smooth soothing tone. "Back on stage, what if I mess up?" Snips asked. He pressed his face to the wolf's shoulder, slightly moving behind him, almost like he was trying to shield himself from being seen. A chuckle escaped from the wolf as he reached over, maneuvering his little friend back around to his front field of view. "You know the song and I'm singing it with you, and if anybody needs to be worried about messing up, it's me trying to fucking hit a high note." The wolf comically shook his head back and forth slightly as his tone changed back and forth, unevenly drawing a quiet laugh from Snips. "Oh, you laughing at my impending fuck up, kid?" The last two sounds punctuated by Naru nudging at the young hound's ribcage, making him giggle and try to push the hand away. The entire exchange accidentally enamoring himself with a more parental audience and viewers, but it also had an inadvertent effect on the more bestial women of hell, with the wolf in a fatherly role for the pup, making many women in the hellhound community imagine a litter of pups with a deadly and affectionate red beast safeguarding them. Safe to say the two goofing around on stage had won over a few parts of hell between the wolf's bloody efficiency and the interaction on stage. "Okay, you ready, kid?" Naru asked, handing the reins to start the show over to Snips as the boy looked out into the stands nervously before looking back at his friend, seeing the wolf smirk a bit, tilting his head. Taking a deep breath, Snips nodded his head as Naruto's smirk grew into a full-blown sharp pearly white grin. Naruto looked over his shoulder at Dex. "Let's do this. Hover me and Sunshine, Leo and Makila Miracioli." The strumming of a guitar came through the audio system into the stadium and the TVs at home and wherever else being viewed. "I've been dreaming of friendly faces," the wolf's voice carried through a soothing, encouraging tone as he focused on the pup before the little guy seemed to work up the courage to join in. "I've got so much time to kill," the pup's voice softly joining the mix for, adding another layer to the song as the other band members smiled as the wolf began rocking his head to the beat, with Snip slowly beginning to keep in time with him. "Just imagine people laughing," the wolf's voice still carrying the gentle coaxing tone as the music continued. "I know someday we will." Their voices mixed once again as Snip still nervously sang. "And even if it's far away," Naruto's voice seemingly picking up as he moved the mic closer to Snips. "Let me through another day," the wolf's voice rang through before the music went quiet and he tilted back from the mic and Snips took a deep breath. "Hover me in sunshine." A growl entering into Naruto's voice that wasn't as brutal as backstage, but still carrying ferocity as Snip sang louder in sync with him as the crowd began to cheer and clap, especially among the hellhounds in attendance and viewing. These mansion. The party had whipped back up once the chorus had started, with many hooting and cheering for the two candidates on stage. "Fuck yeah, kid," Vortex yelled out next to her, throwing his fist shooting up with her doing much of the same, whipping her hair around to the music. Underdog moments got her every time. "Shower me with good times." They watched as the pup got more into the song as well, becoming more confident, and the hounds whipped up with him. "If the vibes tonight we're already at maximum in this motherfucker, this shit went to maximum it. Boo-oh-b took off from the couch, I'm taking into the air, spinning, whipping her hair around, and she moved along to the song with many others dancing along, watching the stream before she suddenly stopped and looked at the screen. "I fucking need to have them here for a party." She zipped over to the screen, looking at each of the band members. "You glorious fuckers better be ready, the party of a lifetime," she said as she took off once more. "Has been hotel. Tell me that the world's been spinning since the beginning." Charlie happily clapped and laughed, seeing Snap start moving with his usual confidence as he sang. "Ah, they're so good," she said happily, bouncing along to the music with Vaggie doing much of the same. Nifty heavily jumping around to the music on the couch before she inadvertently went too far, overshooting and slamming into the floor before quickly getting back up, giggling and continuing to dance. Huzzy has got some lungs on him. Whether or not Angel's comment was meant to be an innuendo or not wasn't really up for debate currently as he sat back genuinely enjoying the song. While Alistair has his ever-present grin in place as his foot tapped the floor. "Not my usual taste, but it suffices," he said as he continued to watch. The red one definitely had some talent, a little tweaking, and he could honestly see some albums under the wolf's belt, while the pup a little bit of vocal coaching, and he could be well on his way as well. "See, fucking told you," Husks piped up once more as he lightly bobbed his head while pouring a shot. "Buxo residence. And everything will be alright." Luna's hair whipped back and forth as she danced to the music in her headphones. Not only was this big red walking mass of fur and muscle real, he could apparently sing on top of basically being able to rip somebody apart like they were fucking made of cardboard. She had to admit watching the interactions between the two of them made her slightly jealous, kind of wishing that someone like the wolf had come along when she was younger at the adoption pound, before looking at her phone once more. Okay, so maybe not directly Mr. Big, Tall, Fuzzy and Hunky, but definitely a parent that would have given a damn when she was little. "Luna, you okay in there?" I heard a lot of bumping around Blitzo's voice, spiking her annoyance for a moment before thinking back to her previous thoughts. Well, one parent did show up fairly fucking late, but he did still try in his own ass backwards way. A sigh left her. "I'm fine, just listening to music," she said, having a genuine moment of quiet appreciation for the slightly psychotic imp. "Oh okay, just being sure, holler if you need anything." She heard Blitzo's footsteps move away from the door as a ghost of a smile formed on her snout. He might have been a psychotic, short-tempered, probably sociopath, but she still appreciated him. Yeah, tonight was fucking awesome, and the fight night wasn't even close to being over yet, she thought, and she went back to dancing, listening to the band. Oh, little guy even had a little solo moment, and unholy fuck, that wolf's damn roar was delicious. Lady Boner's back. And there you go, how do you like them apples? Surprise surprise, there's going to be music fucking galore throughout this entire thing. Because why not? If Charlie can break out into song like a fucked up version of a Disney princess, then I can at least do it and make it make sense, and I kind of wanted Snips to have a voice to go along with the character, so now whenever you hear them talking, you're just always going to hear that voice now from the song, but other than that I hope you guys enjoy it. Side note, its chapter was longer at one point, then I kind of realized alright, I kind of just merged 2 chapters into one, let me split this, so it's like not disgustingly long and feeling drawn out. And I cannot begin to explain my agitation with trying to upload through the app because it destroys the sentence structure when I move my stuff over from this other app that I use on top of stuff, keeps getting underlined, it's a pain in the dang-a-lang. Rage and power words and announcer. Listening and thoughts. Current day it's Skin and Bones Records. I still remember the first thing I did after we heard that voice Portia said before she reached over to her secretary, grabbing her shoulders and slightly shaking her as she did a whisper scream, "We need to sign him, Dad, we need to sign him right damn now." Snips could be heard laughing as she comically reenacted her actions after hearing Naru sing, much to her secretary's slight amusement but mostly annoyance. "Alright, I got it," the secretary said, shooing Portia's hands away much to the girl's amusement, but now completely understanding who is now in the building and why this little hellhound got in here. "So your father wants to hire him as talent." "I mean, I can understand why," the secretary said after Portia made a video of the performance on her phone, much to Snip's embarrassment. "Aw, what, you did so good," the record label heiress said as she ruffled a long fuzz on the top of his head with a giggle, moving her hand back before the boy could swipe at it and sticking her tongue out at him. "Miss Crystal, may I remind you that you are the adults in this situation," her secretary's dry humor shining through as Portia looked at her with a flat stare with her tongue still hanging a bit out before she blew a little bit of air underneath it, making a small raspberry sound. "Spoil sport," she said as she watched the imp smirk. "But yes, Mr. Claus and Muscle is right down the hallway and I've been waiting for a chance to say hello and thank him properly personally," her tone ending in a quiet growl as her tail flicked on the couch. What, no one can really blame her, quite literally the most eligible candidate bachelor in hell was literally just down the hallway, no way she wasn't gonna pass a damn thing up right now. The secretary looked at her with a raised eyebrow. Apparently so. The tablet that the secretary was carrying vibrated as a notification popped up. "Well, it looks like Miss Roxanne is here and on her way up the elevator." With that, the secretary got up from the couch and reopened the doors to the catering area. "By the way, do you know how she gets when someone touches her food, especially since these were special ordered?" the secretary said. It was clear from just looking at the table that someone had been munching. The imp looked at the couch, seeing only Portia. Wait. Looking around a bit, seeing the pup was gone. "I doubt she'll be mad this time after she knows what happened," and she gets a little apology from Portia, then turned her head where Snips was sitting, emphasizing the word was. She stood up looking around the room. "Did you see him move?" her question laced with surprise, the secretary sharing the same look as her before they both look at the couch when they hear a quiet whine. "Does she?" Hound took a knee and looked underneath the couch, seeing the boy had wedged himself back against the wall underneath the furniture. The legs were like maybe half a foot off the ground. "How did he even do that?" "Are you okay, kid?" she asked with a raised eyebrow. Nobody had shouted or flipped out or done anything. She knew how most of the adoption hounds were, with a lot of them being really screwed up from whatever home's rejections and the agencies themselves. "Ice, are you guys talking about Roxy Wolf?" Snip's tone made a look of confusion and slight concern grow on Portia's face. "Yeah, why?" Her confused rebuttal was instantly met with a sadder sounding whine. "Oh no." Okay, she officially needed to know what the hell was going on, but before she could start questioning, a voice interrupted her plans. "Portia, the hell are you doing on the floor? I know I saw your ass that one time, but this is not going to be a running gag, is it?" A third woman's voice made itself known in the room as Portia stood up, facing a slightly taller hound. Roxy, momentarily distracted, the girl rushed over to her friend and one of the company's talents, hugging her as they both rocked back and forth. "Girl, how you been?" Roxy asked, still embracing her friend before they both let go. "You know, being awesome, scouting talent, occasional shootouts, you know, Monday to Friday, shit," the words hanging in the air for a moment before both girls started laughing. "Fuck, I missed hanging out. We gotta plan some days that don't involve me and work," Roxy said before she looked over at the table, a slightly excited gleam in her eyes, before she noticed quite a few things were missing and a few things half-eaten. "Oh, what the fuck?" At her tone, Portia instantly remembered previous events from a few minutes ago. Roxy spoke up again before she could begin to explain. "Dude, I swear if it was the security guards again, they are so going in a fucking meat grinder. And what the fuck is this?" Roxy bent down, picking up something partially hidden underneath the tablecloth. Portia's eyes widened as she saw the plushie, and a few puzzle pieces suddenly clicked into place. She and her secretary hadn't scared him. He felt guilty. She was a fan of hers. Oh crap. Roxy looked over the plushie. It was a cheap version of one of her actual toys. The hair was slightly the wrong color, so was the outfit, and so were the eyes. This fucking thing had Lulu and written all over it. And the fucking assholes had the gall to leave this here, dude. What the fuck? Roxy rounded back to her friend, only to see her friend making a quickly moving placating gesture with one hand while holding a finger to her lips with the other. There was an almost urgent look on her face before Portia started to quietly mouth something. Little guy didn't know at this, Roxy's confusion grew a bit. Hound, he's a fan, as it clicked for her. Before she suddenly felt like a bit of a shitheel, granted it was for good reason, just not this time. Roxy gave a sigh and rubbed her forehead. Under normal circumstances, Roxy was a downright mean bitch if you got her on the wrong day, but usually, fans could slide with some things, not a lot, but a good bit. Now, unfortunately, this time it was a fan, and it happened to be one of the few things that she didn't have it in her to have a mean streak with. Ups, she just didn't have it in her. Way too many of them were orphans, and far too many were broken even before their teenage years. Even more were put down for one reason or another. The amount of time she had happily held up concerts just to do meet and greets with the ones that actually managed to come to her shows. She was more than happy to sign as many things as they brought. Fuck it, her signature was worth some money, and she knew they needed it. A bit of guilt grew on Roxy's face as she looked at her friend. Where is the little guy? She asked before a quiet sniffling whine made her and Portia look at the couch. He was hiding from her. Nope, no, hell no, this will not do. She quickly made her way over, kneeling down much like how her friend did before seeing the pup underneath it. His hood was pulled down, hiding his face. His tail was curled up and his leg was shaking. Sorry, the single muffled word from the pup felt like a jab to her heart. Oh honey, it's okay, really. I promise, her words coming out as soothing as she could make them as she laid down fully on the floor, trying to coax him out. Before she had an idea, sitting up, she grabbed a paper plate and snatched up what was in arms, reach and set them on it. Snips could hear something being pushed towards him across the floor. Lifting his head, he saw it. A plate full of different meats and pastries. If you come out from under there, you can eat these with me, Roxanne said, lying on the floor and looking at him. She rested her chin on her forearm, with a small smirk on her face. Hey, and she stifled a laugh when Snip's hood was pulled back down. She watched with amusement as the boy's tail uncurled from his leg and began thumping against the bottom of the couch and the floor. She laughed a bit as she moved the plate back. You're kicking up dust, little dude. Now come on, get out of here so I can get a look at you, she said as she pulled the plate from underneath the couch and leaned back on her knees. She then sat the plate on the couch cushion and waited for him as she stood back up. Slowly, he crawled from underneath the couch, his hood still pulled over his head. As he slowly looked up at her, she wasn't in her usual concert gear, but was sporting a black tank top and some leather pants with cuts along the legs, which had baggy-looking legs below the shins, leather bell bottoms. I wonder if you can use those like a parachute, he thought to himself, as he began to imagine floating off of a building with the pant legs being puffed up. His thoughts were suddenly brought to a halt because he realized Roxanne had moved closer and was kneeling in front of him. It's her. It's really her. Sup, kid? Snip suddenly grabbed the drawstrings to his hood, sealing the rim around his snout. This drew a laugh from Portia, who said, "Oh, he's shy." He could hear Portia's voice as she giggled a bit. "Stop it, we're trying to get him to chill, Crystal," the tone in Roxy's voice sounding surprisingly protective. Portia laughed a little bit again. Ooh, last names, you always go all mama hound when there's little fluff involved, he thought to himself. My birthday is in 2 months, so I'm not little, Snips muttered, catching the attention of the room's 3 occupants. Oh, so you're the soon-to-be birthday boy, which means I need to give you a gift. A finger tapped his snout, making him give a squeak of surprise. This gave Roxanne a bit of a laugh before he felt someone gently tugging on the rim of the hood. Alright, birthday boy, you can't eat if you have a hood on. That's bad manners, right? Roxanne said as she gently opened the hood and peeled it back, letting her completely see his face for the first time. Her eyes narrowed for a moment before they widened in recognition. Whoa, if it isn't the little rock star. Roxanne exclaimed excitedly before Snip suddenly found himself being picked up into a hug. The poor kid was suddenly stricken with rigor mortis as his brain momentarily shut off from the sudden hug. Before his brain slowly caught up and realized his favorite rock star was giving him a hug, his arms instantly latched around her and his tail began wagging again. A giddy laughter bubbled up from him. There's the little rocker, Roxanne said in a boisterous tone, and she lightly swung him back and forth, making his legs pendulum to and fro. The hug went on for a bit longer before she sat him on the couch and grabbed the plate from the table, setting it on the couch before she sat down facing him with one of her legs bent, with her ankle resting on her adjacent knee. Snips, right. Roxanne asked before she quickly had to stifle another laugh as the boy had apparently quickly grabbed a pastry and had it half stuffed in his mouth as he looked back and forth between the two older she-hounds, one of whom had a look of barely contained amusement on her face as well as her phone in her hand. Click. "And that's gonna get posted," Portia said with a cheeky grin as Roxanne rolled her eyes with an amused huff and looked over at the imp assistant. "Gloria, could you be a doll and run down to my truck? I left something in the back seat. You'll know when you see it," she said, handing her the keys. Gloria raised an eyebrow. Roxanne never let anyone touch Vanessa, and the last person who scuffed it was missing a leg and a hand. "Be back in a bit," Gloria said as she left the catering room. Roxanne looked back at Snips, seeing the pastry was now gone. Yep, he definitely lived on his own for a while, she thought, if he ate like this as if it would be taken from him or dropped it to haul ass if need be. She frowned a bit, knowing the situations many hellhounds can get themselves caught up in on their own. However, she remembered one particular detail. "So how long has the big guy been looking after you, and where is he? You're not here by yourself, right?" she asked, genuinely curious, really hoping the kid hadn't just come here on his own. "A month and a half, Naru's been really nice." He pauses for a bit, jabbing a sliced bit of ham with his claw and throws it into his mouth before it shows up and he swallows it down. "Before, when I went to sleep in the warehouse I lived in, I used to have to hide and sometimes I wouldn't get to sleep a lot because the place would get broken into by junkies or other demons hiding out. I'd have to try really hard to be quiet or I'd have to leave or I'd have to sleep on the roof and sometimes it would rain." He yammered off, lamenting with a little growl about how easily his home kept getting broken into. Missing the looks on Portia's and Roxanne's faces, one looking a lot more sorry for the pup coming from a similar situation, they both came to the same conclusion that the pup had escaped from the adoption pound of the ring, where he was born. Not too uncommon a thing, but still a large number of them who had tried usually didn't last long. Even Roxy herself was lucky in that regard, so she felt a bit of kinship with the little guy. "Because of Naru, I could sleep all the time. The one time someone tried to break in, he literally kicked him so hard in the balls that his body split in half. I didn't even know that was possible." The boy's tone instantly picked up with more excitement as he made a kicking motion, nearly missing the table. Drawing a raised eyebrow from Roxanne, "Well, under normal circumstances, such things would probably be exaggerations, coming from younger hellhounds that had yet to come into their strength, but after witnessing the wolf and his ability in the Blood Dome, it was pretty much on par with what he had shown." Hell, she was lucky to have a front row seat at a song she remixed for the big guy, but the last fights and the explosions and everything else, especially once Big Red and Fuzzy apparently kicked on some kind of power that charged the thick agent stone and churned out heat she had never felt before. The shit was downright magical. Flashback Blood Dome. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight has been a wild ride." The crowd whipped up in thunderous cheers around the Coliseum, lights around the Curl-Seam swirled, casting spotlights along the audience, adding to the fanfare and music. "We have had fight after amazing fight, well some not so amazing, but some are going to be the talk of the town until the next Blood Dome rolls around and you folks in attendance are getting treated real special tonight, almost like we love you, and we got a special treat for this matchup. We got the local hellhound favorites, the Shiv puppies. Act DC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap starts to play." Out of one corner of the fighters arena, a group of 4 hellhounds emerged, all looking similar except for the smaller female of the group. Did you know their story? A team of pups separated by the adoption agency found their way back to each other and have been kicking ass ever since. We have the bee and ferocious Belle. The hounds in the crowd cheered and howled when she whipped her hands up, howling along with them. While she definitely had the look of eye candy, the numerous ass whippings she had handed out, along with her little brothers, showed why she was in charge of their group. "We got the tough as nails Donnie." The crowd kept cheering as Donnie raised his ends, bringing the energy to the crowd. He raised a hand to his ear, nodded his head, and wore a look of satisfaction on his snout. His bosom brother and partner in crime Johnny. Donnie did a flourish of his hand, bowing in different directions to the audience. He then raised both his hands in the traditional raise roof gesture, with a mischievous smirk on his face. His brother drew an elbow to his side, laughing. "And last but not least we got Mikey. If you ever had somebody you wanted to do it, dare it's this crazy fucker right here." The largest hellhound in the bunch stood there slightly cockeyed with an ever-present small smile on his face before he threw his hands up laughing maniacally. Belle facepalmed in amusement at her youngest brother while she and her other 2 brothers cringed away from him. "Oh, come on, really, dude, you ripped ass," Johnny said as he, Donnie, and Belle held their snouts and moved away from their brother a bit as the big lug laughed a little bit more. "There was something wrong with that one." The announcer's voice came through in a normal speaking tone, sounding actually pretty concerned as the light in the other competitor's entrance went off. Now, for their opponent, it seems one of the sponsors for tonight has decided to do something a little special. This man's getting played in with live music, that's a first. Big guys, gotta entrance them now. Hot damn, but you better get loud in here, crowd. You're getting live performance from the lovely, the ferocious, the bodacious Roxanne motherfucking Wolf. The crowd loudly roared as lights went to the top of the announcer's booth, where Roxanne could be seen standing with the rest of her band, donned in her signature candy red shorts and top, with a sharp-toothed grin. "What's up you sexy bitches, you better have some howls left in the tank, this one just begged to get a tweak for this guy 3-2-1. A synchronous howl went through the stadium as every hellhound in attendance joined in, many of them having a feeling that the song was about to be played. As Roxy began to strum her guitar, she played one of her top songs from her first album. She had definitely changed up genres since then, but it was always fun to run back songs. Bria Von Slasher Blood Barbie with tweaked lyrics. Oh big boy got that bite. That's been tearing up the competition, this man is shaking up the food chain in Hess, not slowing down, give it up for the Scarly Claw. The announcer's voice cut through the strumming and ended when the beat finally dropped as a large figure emerged from the other tunnel, as the Shiv puppy's ears and tails drooped once they saw who they were fighting. Let's hear it for the big bad wolf. Vicious barks rang through the stadium at his appearance, going along with the song. Let's hear it for the big bad wolf. Let's hear it for the big bad wolf. Let's hear it for the big bad wolf. Big bad wolf coming at ya. The Ripper the Slasher. At Has Been Hotel. Nifty could be seen whipping her head back and forth to the music before she took off chasing after a bug with a size-appropriate pitchfork, laughing maniacally. "Wolfie's really is a walking tank of a sinner, isn't he?" Vaggie said, nestled next to Charlie as the daughter of Lucifer rested her cheek on his head. The ex-executioner couldn't help but think that if they had crossed paths while she was still in heaven, the outcome of her survival would have been highly in question. Well, she knew she was definitely good in a fight. The big fella seemed to be in a whole different ballpark when it comes to pure raw strength, making her wonder if he was actually some kind of recent fallen as well. But she had no memory of anyone like him in heaven, and on top of the fact that he didn't even have wings, that ruled out a great number of possible angels to choose from. She felt Charlie nod her head before she spoke, "Yeah, but I'm not entirely sure that he's a sinner. There's a kind of energy about them that you can just feel, but with him, I can't tell." Her statement got a raised eyebrow from Vaggie and curious looks from the other nearby inhabitants of the hotel. "We all saw the security camera footage, and that big-ass ball of fire he came out of," Angle said as he lounged on the other nearby couch. "True, but something is not right when I compare him to others," Charlie said as she sat up a bit. "Between the eyes and his disposition, and he doesn't behave or have the mannerisms of someone linked to a sin, or at least possibly not just anyone." On top of his memory loss, Charlie thought over everything she knew about him so far. He never seemed to have any ulterior motives, no ultimate goal, or at least she hoped he didn't, and that he wasn't a really good liar. "Well, you don't necessarily follow the mold either, do you?" Angel said with a shrug as Charlie begrudgingly nodded. "Maybe he's just another rare gem kind of situation," Vaggie said, giving her girlfriend's hand a gentle squeeze, which made Charlie blush a bit from the compliment being subtly given to her as she snuggled her head down next to Vaggie's again. She focused back on the screen with a burning curiosity about her friend's existence as Roxy's voice continues through the TV. No one else noticed how quiet Alistair had been for the last hour or so as he was intently focused on Naru. Charlie's words gave some more volition to his own suspicions about him and the power you can feel from the wolf. During their first meeting, he had felt something from the wolf. There was some kind of power there, quite yet unleashed, something prowling beneath the surface. It's as if trapped or sleeping, their new so-called friend was hiding something. Whether or not it was of his own volition or not was yet to be seen. Whatever it was, it simmered beneath the surface, leaking out in moments of anger, like standing at the foot of a volcano attempting to become active before it settled. Keeping so much force and volatility held in check. Whatever the wolf had, it warranted great and subtle curiosity, who knows, it could have its uses someday. All he needed was get the wolf to make a deal. His teeth gonna gnash, yay. Think you're a match, yay. The Ripper the Slasher. The Skull Basher. The Bone Cracker. Beelzebub Mansion. The boisterous hellhounds in the house were all howling and barking as the liquor flowed, and Big Red himself walked out, making them kick back up again. Beelzebub broke away from a makeout session with Vortex to join in, loving the energy, every last bit of it. It's like whenever this dude showed up, it was a party powder keg. Who knew something this scary could look like a centerfold? Mua, these lyrics for that boy RB brings three of her hands up to her lips while leaving the last one draped over the back of Vortex's shoulders, making an exaggerated kiss sound as she moves them away. "Fucking chef's kiss," she laughs, kicking her feet on the couch before sneaking a glance over at Vortex and grinding a little bit in his lap against a hard lump, getting a growl out of him. "Oopsie," she said with an impish grin before focusing back on the TV, sighing in annoyance. Earlier in the party, someone had informed her that Big Red was some kind of sinner, not a new kind of hellhounder variant. This meant she had to ixnay the whole party idea for him unless she managed to get Lucy to give her a pass, allowing him to be pulled to Gluttony's ring. Such a fucking bummer, she said with a pout that looked more at home on a puppy's face than hers. Nothing says you can't have a party up in Pride, right? Vortex said as he gently scratched under her chin, bringing her out of her pouty mood. Well, yeah, but then we'd have to get a bunch of other stuff involved, zoning, and actual cleanup crews. So much damn paperwork, not to mention the sinners that would actually be dumb enough to try to crash or bomb the party, Beelzebub said with a slightly disgruntled shiver at the thought of paperwork. And you know I love my house parties, everyone's having fun. The vibes are delicious and it's under my supervision, she said with a slightly put-off huff, but she'd be willing to do it, but it would have to be one big-ass awesome party. Who knew with a situation this hairy? The heart could be cold. Oh, I heard that. You like it rough. Amina Apex. Ain't looking down. But keep looking up. She rocked along to the music, purposely ignoring the teasing from her boyfriend. Oh well, he's the one who made her wait. This is his fault, not hers. But she couldn't help the slight amounts of annoyance and a slight twinge of intuition about the Red Wolf. He looked too well put together compared to most sinners. They always had something fairly strange or off about them in some way, shape or form, no matter what they turned into when they got down here. Maybe he was a lucky one. Maybe he wasn't too much of a bad guy in life and whatever powers that be decided not to make him look like a partial freak show. Who knows, but for now, future worries are for the future. She turned back around to Vortex, smirked at him, and then went after his neck, giggling. Uxo residence. Ugh, I knew I should have gotten tickets, Luna said. She whipped a pillow across the room at her door. The fights were amazing, the music was awesome, and she could have been getting a front row seat to watch the hottest, most muscular guy in all of hell throw beatdowns on people. Taking a moment to think to herself, Luna slightly reneged on that thought. It was definitely a tie between him and Beelzebub, especially after a few pictures from one of Beelzebub's made it onto Instagram of an inadvertent wet t-shirt incident after someone had busted a keg open, soaking a few hellhounds and Beelzebub herself. Who would have guessed she had piercings? She thought to herself. She watched Naru stop a few yards away from the Shiv puppies as he folded his arms across his chest, tilting his head a bit with a smirk. Oh, you think? You're so tough. But with a huff and a puff. You're tapping out. And he ain't warmed up. Why is he so hot? Luna said with a wink and she rolled onto her stomach, resting her chin on another pillow, never taking her eyes off the screen. It was like watching a supermodel that got dunked in testosterone and sin and came back out of the tank, choosing violence. Oddly enough, he was selectively violent, seeing as he had enough power to go ahead and start wiping out overlords, taking their territories for himself. But he seemed oddly content just doing what he was doing and looking after his little sidekick. Her tail couldn't help but wag, remembering the dynamic between the two when they had been on stage, play fighting back and forth, with Snips managing to get the last blow, whacking the wolf in the leg with the microphone, dropping it, and taking off down the competitor's hallway. The little dude was definitely fast, but the speed that Naru had hawked him down with was hilarious but slightly scary. It was scary to have something that large running you down that fast. As he scooped the boy up under his arm, he drilled his knuckles back and forth on the pup's head. The boy gave out a shriek of protest, trying to push the hand away and wiggle, hoping to escape. The mix along the highway picked up their laughter. Such a dad, Luna couldn't help but enjoy that aspect of him. She hadn't exactly seen a lot of good parental figures throughout her life. It was a help shit was supposed to be all kinds of wrong down here. She got the program. The good ones she did see, however, she always found herself a bit envious, especially in her younger years, and hopeful to be found by someone and be pulled from her own agency's pound. But life quickly stomped on those hopes, along with a lot of other things too. Either way, she is where she is now, and she was alive with a roof over her head. It was way better than a lot of the alternatives that she could have ended up in. As much as it annoyed her sometimes to admit it, she was happy where she was. Before the sound of a bang was heard, someone fell. AHH. Son of a bitch. She couldn't help the snort of laughter that left her as she thought to herself and realized that Blitzel's shin had reunited with the coffee table. Jackass, well, the spoken word was certainly an insult, it carried affection, which luckily only she was around to hear. Ain't howling if you ain't got a full moon. Creepily prowling. Always on the move. The Lux Mansion. The night is one of his few favorite nights of the year, a little controlled televised death, a little destruction, and all-around entertainment. As Lucifer lounged on the expensive couch in front of a gigantic TV, tonight was different from the others. This Red Wolf had seemingly captured the show tonight, but the longer Lucifer watched, the more he became suspicious and unsure of a few things. Whatever Scarlet Claw, or rather Naru, was doing, it didn't add up. True, he had fallen from on high, but everything about him didn't sit right. And for the guy who had been working this gig since time immemorial, he considered himself the expert. When he had heard the candidate had taken up residence in Charlie's new hotel, the timing was a bit auspicious, too much so for his liking, but from what he had gleaned from Charlie and a few discreet observations he had done himself, there hadn't been anything to worry about. Yet. True, the recent resident in hell hadn't shown any ill will of any kind to his daughter, and for his sake, it best remain that way, though unfortunately for now however he had more questions than he had answers. Heart poundin'. A9 vs Kit Kit. Break you in two. Let's hear it for the big bad wolf. 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 Big bad wolf. And he did not like it, but first, reaching into his pocket he pulled his phone and opened his contacts. A flick of his thumb had names flowing upwards in a blur before he pressed down on one name particular as he smirked. Why not let everything go out on a real high note, make it interesting for the ages, and see exactly where this guy stood. What if Naruto X Loona Helluva Boss end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.